Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the live show. Welcome. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 1:20 p.m. and today's date is the 5th of January 2025. I am back here with another episode. How are you doing today? Ladies and gentlemen, today's Sunday. Let's say a prayer before we start. Dear Lord, thank you for a new day. We appreciate you for everything you're doing for us. Thank you for the protection. Thank you for the provisions. Thank you for the family. Thank you for everybody out there. And please give everybody strength to keep going, to keep fighting, to never quit, to believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Sunday vibe, y'all. Sunday vibe, y'all. Sunday vibe, y'all. Okay. All right. Here we go. I feel wow, I feel good. I feel good. With that prayer, I feel really good. All right, thank you, Lord. Okay. With that being said, it's update with Genesis right here. Biden is under fire for controversial Medal of Freedom. Okay. He gave Judge Soros. He gave Hillary Clinton. Okay. He's giving his pals. That's all I could tell. That's all I could tell at this point is giving his pals. However, he also gave Denzel Washington, who in my opinion deserves it. Okay, because he's done a lot of charity work. He gave Magic Johnson. He also gave Lionel Messi. In that case, I mean, I know Lionel Messi is a legend, but Presidential Medal of Freedom, I don't know. I don't know, man. All right, here we go.
Former Secretary of State and presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, one of 19 Americans that President Biden awarded the Medal of Freedom last night. Another was controversial Democratic donor George Soros. It's time now for our Sunday group. Fox News contributor and Outkick columnist Mary Catherine Ham, former State Department spokesperson and Fox News contributor Marie Harf, Doug Heye, former RNC communications director and founder of Douglas Media, and Mario Parker, Bloomberg managing editor for U.S. Economy and Government. Thank you guys for being here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so these recipients, Mary Catherine, I mean, there was a long list, but a number of them were prominent critics of Trump. Do you think that Biden was trying to send a message with this list?
Yes, but
Probably.
I think that most presidents do. And I'm going to surprise everybody by saying that I think it's good that Hillary Clinton got this award because not a lot of novelists and fiction writers get the award. And yet the Hillary Clinton campaign financed and created one of the greatest works of fiction in living memory in the Steele dossier. And despite it being total fiction, it enthralled the press and the intel community and federal law enforcement for years. And so I applaud her for that work of fiction. I'm excited about the work she does in the future on her totally fictional presidency.
I was going to go somewhere else, but I got to let Marie say something.
You really came in hot this morning. I love it. My friend Mary Catherine
I just want to applaud her.
Brought the 2025 energy. All presidents do this. Donald Trump gave the Medal of Freedom to Miriam Adelson, one of his top donors. He gave it to a bunch of sports athletes and people like Tiger Woods. This is what presidents do. I think there were a number of people like Jose Andres, across the political aisle, who may be a critic of Trump, but people admire for his work providing food in places that have gone through natural disasters in the U.S. and around the world. So a lot of people that we can applaud on this list. I think Joe Biden was nice in the way he did this. Presidents do this. All of them do.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, I mean, the president also gave Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson the Presidential Citizens Medal for their work on the January 6th committee. Do you see a jab at Trump on his way out the door with that?
Potentially so. Again, this is what presidents do. Miriam Adelson being a good example of that. We could go back to Obama. Certainly a lot of Obama supporters he gave awards to, donors as well. So a lot of this is business as usual. And I was just in Asheville, North Carolina over the break. I saw the work that Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen did up close. It's still really bad out there. I was thrilled to see him honored. But what I saw also was the president who made the first Trump administration, or the candidate who made the first Trump administration happen, be decorated by the person who made the second Trump administration happen. And there was a certain poetry to that.
All right, we're moving on.
Poetry's one word for it, though.
All right, moving on. The president is drawing some bipartisan criticism for blocking the sale of U.S. steel to Japanese company Nippon. The CEO blasted this decision, saying, quote, President Biden's action today is shameful and corrupt. He gave political payback to a union boss out of touch with his members while harming our company's future, our workers, and our national security. He insulted Japan, a vital economic and national security ally, and put American competitiveness at risk. The Chinese Communist Party leaders in Beijing are dancing in the streets. Mario, did the president play right into China's hand with this decision? What could the impact be?
I'm not sure. This is one of the rare instances in which Biden and Trump agree on, right? Trump has also said that he would be opposed to the deal. A couple of things going on here, both domestically and then foreign policy-wise. Pennsylvania, right? It's a key battleground state. Unions are involved. Both parties are vying for the affection of the unions. Joe Biden has called himself the most pro-union president of all time. So there's that. The other thing is that the national security apparatus for the current president, soon to be former president, they were split on it, right? So there was a school of thought that this undermines a key ally. Japan is one of the biggest foreign investors in the United States, right? We've got 50,000 some troops there as well, but business is business, and there's a risk, and COVID highlighted this, where we don't have the onshoring of our supply chain, where anything can happen, and steel is a vital material for us.
Well, Marie, I mean, I'll ask you because of your experience at the State Department, how much is this going to hurt the U.S. relationship with Japan?
This is one of the areas I actually disagree with President Biden. And if we can believe the reporting that Mario just alluded to, so did Jake Sullivan, so did John Feiner. The top national security officials said this could really hurt our relationship with Japan. There's reporting that the Prime Minister of Japan actually weighed in, sent a letter to President Biden asking him to approve this. That's a very rare step for a prime minister to take. And a president.
What are you talking about? Like, what are these people talking about? So you're talking about United States Steel, okay? This is U.S. Steel. It's called U.S. Steel for a reason. You're talking about, oh, we're gonna hurt our relationship with Japan. F Japan. What do you mean? Oh, we're gonna hurt our relationship. So you want to sell United States Steel Corporation to Japan? Oh, the Prime Minister of Japan wrote to the president. So what? So what? It's called United States first, America first. Like, what are you doing? This is why I voted for the OG Trump. Trump said there's no way we're going to let the United States Steel go somewhere else. And I'm shocked that Joe Biden would say the same thing. However, it's like, what are you saying? Oh, we're going to hurt our relationship with Japan. Man, you better sit down.
To disagree with. A lot of the workers also wanted this deal to go through. Nippon promised to spend almost $3 billion shoring up U.S. Steel, which has had a lot of problems. They pledged to adhere to the United Steelworkers, their latest contract. So I think this is one area where Joe Biden's personal and political feelings about unions, about the steel industry, really took hold over the national security argument, which I don't like when national security threats are used to justify these kinds of decisions, because I just don't think that that threat is there, and neither did the national security team.
And Marie highlights something that's an interesting dynamic here. You know, typically what we've seen with the Biden White House is they are incredibly disciplined on not having leaks. Obviously, the fact that every White House staffer thought that Joe Biden was capable of doing the job for 4 years is a good example. But we've heard a lot of dissension from within the administration on this, from the Secretary of State to obviously Rahm Emanuel, the Japanese, the ambassador to Japan. That's really rare in this situation, and it shows, you know, I think what a political mistake.
I definitely support Joe Biden on this one, because obviously the legend, the OG, Donald Trump already said he was going to block the deal anyway, because why would you sell United States Steel Company okay, to Japan. What is that? I don't care if they're going through bankruptcy, okay? Keep United States steel in the United States. It has to be on United States soil. So if something happens and United States needs steel, then you're gonna go to Japan to get steel. So you're gonna go buy steel from Japan or China or somewhere else. This ain't it, man. This ain't it.
This might have been for Biden.
When
I
it
want to
comes
ask
the-
you,
Go ahead.
Mary Catherine, one specific question because U.S. Steel and Nippon both accused Biden of manipulating the CFIUS process in pursuit of a political end. The Wall Street Journal editorial board said this could really have some far-reaching consequences. They said Mr. Biden's essentially redefining national security to include economic nationalism, which will introduce many new gates for political interference. Unions and corporate competitors now know they can use CFIUS as another political lever to block investments that they don't like. Is this going to send a chill to foreign investors?
I think it rationally would. It's sending the message that it's going to be much harder to get through this process and that you're not looking at the normal barriers and the normal things that might stop you. And when it comes to the economic security part of this, one of the things CFIUS report cites is a possibility of less U.S. steel output. You know what else would cause less U.S. steel output? Is if they don't get an infusion of capital that they need to survive as a company, and then you get much less U.S. steel output.
Yeah, there is a concern now from investors and economists that U.S. Steel could be sold off piecemeal in a bankruptcy. Do you believe there's any argument, Mario, that could win in court because you've had Nippon and U.S. Steel both vowing to challenge this?
I think what the other panelists have alluded to is something that it's quite a possibility, right? They both threatened to have some type of legal action. We don't know what comes out in discovery at all. And the fact that CFIUS had, before this point, had been a black box in previous administrations. So we're not sure what can be unsurfaced in emails, communications, et cetera, on how this came about.
Doug, I want to ask you, to the point made earlier, both Trump and Biden opposed this. Do you think we're witnessing sort of a swing toward protectionism in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's also a bit of horseshoe politics. On a lot of issues, the more to the right and the more to the left you go, the more you sort of meet at that place. So, Donald Trump got a lot of labor support, as we've seen. Joe Biden has positioned himself as the most pro-labor president that we've ever had.
Yeah,
Not terribly surprising that on an issue like this, they'd be in agreement.
Marie, at what cost is this happening? Because, as Mario mentioned, the other company who was bidding for this came up short. And now, U.S. Steel is sort of in the lurch.
This is something that Donald Trump and future presidents will have to deal with. I mean, Mario also alluded to COVID and the fact that there was this idea in the last 5 years that we wanted to bring more of our supply chain, more of these critical industries back to the United States. I think most of us agree that in general, that's a good thing for a number of reasons. But the world is globalized, and this company, U.S. Steel, needs cash. And there have to be ways for foreign companies to invest in American companies, to continue to do that.
This isn't, but she's wrong, though. She's absolutely wrong. This is not an investment. This is actually buying, okay? They're actually buying U.S. Steel. So that's not an investment. An investment is you could call it an investment as well, but when you say they're investing in the United States, no, they're actually buying it. It's like they're acquiring it. No, if they're trying to invest, maybe they're trying to buy like 20% or 30%. Okay, fair. Like they want to outrightly buy United States Steel. It's called the United States Steel for a reason, okay? Trump said something, okay, that I would never forget. He said, what if there's war? Nobody prays for war, okay? Nobody prays for war. But what if there's war and then you need steel? Because, of course, obviously you need steel. Just like if you need steel, you got to go buy steel from Japan or China. No, leave United States Steel on United States soil. That's all it is. She's absolutely wrong. Talking about the word is global. So what? Are you a globalist or are you a capitalist? And it's America first, yo.
To have all boats rise together economically in our country and around the world, and to protect American workers and our supply chains. There has to be a way to thread that needle. And it felt like this deal was possibly one of those ways, with U.S. Steel, with Nippon pledging to maintain some of the guardrails that we care about in this country. union contracts, for example, pledging to invest in this company. So this is something that future presidents, that Congress, that all these folks are going to have to deal with. And this idea that we just go back to protectionism and that we sort of close our doors and shut out the rest of the world, it's just not reality. And American companies and workers will suffer if we try to do that.
And one of Joe Biden's core promises was, hey, allies, I'm with you. I'm a rational actor and you can work with me. This really puts a damper on all that talk that we've heard from day one from the Biden administration. It
was surprising, and it seems like they knew that because they signed off on an arms deal the same day that they killed the sale here. So we'll be right back, panel. We'll leave.
Yeah. I don't support selling U.S. steel. I mean, it's called U.S. steel. God damn. Y'all get it together. Get it together, y'all.
And we begin this Sunday morning with President Trump's agenda. Now that Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has secured his re-election. Even with a slim margin and pressure from some conservative members, Johnson was able to defend the gavel Friday to win re-election in the first round to lead the 119th Congress. Republicans now in the majority in the House, the Senate, and of course, they'll have the White House when President-elect Trump is inaugurated now in 2 weeks' time. Joining me now with the agenda and the road ahead is the man himself, newly re-elected Speaker of the House, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson, who has been convening with his conference this weekend to set the agenda. Mr. Speaker, congratulations to you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
And what do you guys think about Speaker Mike Johnson? Okay, now, I've said it a couple of times. Speaker Mike Johnson actually helped Trump win the election. Okay, you could argue back and forth. It's not just Speaker Mike Johnson. Okay, it's Elon Musk. It's everybody else. All right, Vivek, Ron DeSantis, everybody sort of kind of chime in. However, Speaker Mike Johnson was a big player during the election, as well as Joe Rogan and everybody else on the right. But I think he deserves to be the speaker again. And of course, tomorrow is the 6th of January. Remember 4 years ago, January 6th, we're going to have another January 6th tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow is January 6th, and tomorrow is when he's supposed to be confirmed. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Remember what happened 4 years ago, ladies and gentlemen? You better know.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for all your support and encouragement, and Happy New Year. It's going to be a big one for us.
Happy New Year to you. How do you plan to execute President Trump's agenda?
Beginning immediately. We, as you said, indicated there, we gathered all the House Republicans together yesterday and had a full day of work. We went to Fort McNair, which is a short drive in Maryland, and everyone was enclosed together for 8 or 9 hours straight talking about our reconciliation agenda and the America First agenda. We're 15 days out from the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump for his second term, and we want to make sure that we're jump-starting the agenda now over the next 2 weeks so that he's prepared and ready on day one. We have a lot to do, as you know, and we've been putting all the plays together and figuring out the sequence of how we're going to run those plays, and we're really excited about it.
Have you spoken with President Trump about what he prefers? Does he want one large reconciliation package to include border security, deportations, as well as tax extensions, or does he want two, as Senator Lindsey Graham has been working on?
Yeah, he and I have talked about this quite a bit, as you might imagine, over the last few months, determining the pros and cons of the two different strategies. I respect Lindsey Graham and all my friends who kind of preferred a two-step strategy. The idea would be get something done on the border and maybe defense spending right out of the blocks very quickly in what we would call a skinny reconciliation bill, and then do the rest of it in a larger chunk later. But I think at the end of the day, President Trump is going to prefer, as he likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. And there's a lot of merit to that because we can put it all together, one big up or down vote, which can save the country, quite literally, because there are so many elements to it, and it'll give us a little bit more time to negotiate that and get it right. That doesn't mean that we won't come right out of the gates, full-fledged, right out of the beginning of the Congress. And so we'll be addressing border. We've got a number of bills just over the next 2 weeks, Maria, that we're going to address the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. I think that there's some things that are so common sense that we've got to fix checks on the border, we might even be able to get some Democrat votes on some of that legislation. But we'll pass it out of the House and send it over to the Senate and get it ready for when President Trump takes office on January 20th. We have a lot to do and a short amount of time to do it in.
So if you are doing everything or most of the priorities in one big, beautiful bill, as you say, that includes what? Walk us through what that would include.
Well, it'll have a lot of pieces. We made a lot of campaign promises. President Trump did as well. And reconciliation is the way to get it done. Why? Because you avoid a 60-vote threshold.
Everybody keeps talking about, we're kind of shocked that Trump picked Mike Johnson. You guys forget that Mike Johnson actually campaigned with Trump. Look, this man has been loyal, okay? Everybody has had their own ups and downs. It's called politics, y'all. Okay, it's called politics. However, during the campaign period and when they were trying to throw Donald Trump under the bus with the lawsuit and all that stuff, he was loyal. He was going back and forth to Mar-a-Lago. He was getting on Fox News. He was campaigning. He was telling the people, we got to get on board and we got to make sure we elect the 47th. Okay, so it's like, you guys don't forget. Yeah, I know you guys you forget quickly, but don't forget this man was actually out there campaigning for Donald Trump. He was, all right, he was. And you think Trump is gonna back someone who hasn't been loyal to him? You think Trump is Trump never forgets. Okay, Trump never forgets, and is never gonna back you if you are not loyal. Trump is it's like them OGs back in the days where if you're not loyal, you're going to have to go. So Mike has been loyal, and that's just the facts.
The Senate. So reconciling the budget, which we will pass in early February, is how we'll get all of our committees involved, committees of jurisdiction on all these big issues. What are they? Well, obviously, we have to secure the border. We've got to make sure that our Border Patrol agents and our immigration enforcement agencies have the right directives from the White House, but also the right resources to do their job and secure that border once and for all. We've got to take care of the dangerous illegal criminals who have come over, and all that's part of it as well. And we've got to shift immediately to the economy. Maria, you talk about every day. We've got to revive the U.S. economy, and we can. We know how to do it. Part of that is preventing the largest tax increase in U.S. history, which would happen automatically at the end of next year if we don't get our ducks in a row. So we're going to make sure that happens. We're going to incentivize American companies to manufacture in the U.S. again, and we're going to make sure that the regulatory burden and the red tape that has smothered our free market is reduced and eliminated. And we're going to be dismantling the deep state all along the way. We're going to restore American energy dominance. So many different pieces to this, Maria. They all have to work together. And, of course, the president has asked us and really needs us to address the debt limit crisis before that hits in June. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things to negotiate, a lot of opinions on all that. So we'll be working long, long hours with whiteboards, making sure every Republican is on board. Because, remember, I'll be dealing with the smallest margin in U.S. history for much of the first 100 days. But we're going to get it done.
I understand that. So are you expecting to raise or eliminate the debt ceiling as part of that big bill?
I think we're going to have to do it in that bill. And the reason for that, Maria, is that we won't have to negotiate with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats on that. If you do it in reconciliation, you can do it just with the Republican Party. So we'll have very thoughtful discussion and debate about where that limit should go. But here's the important thing everybody needs to remember. We're the team that wants to cut spending, and we will. And we will do it dramatically. All the wasteful spending in government. DOGE will be doing its effort in coordination with all this. But you have to raise the debt limit on paper so that we don't frighten the bond markets and the world's economy. You know how that works. It's about the stability of our economy. But we don't intend to spend to that limit, as President Trump will clarify all the time. We're going to raise the ceiling, but we are going to be cutting all along the way. So we can do both of those things simultaneously.
So, Mr. Speaker, if you are able to do everything in one package, including border security, deportations, extending the tax cuts, and energy permitting, what's a realistic timeline on that? Would you have that on the president's desk by May?
Certainly by May, yes. In fact, we're targeting a vote in the House maybe in the first week of April. Now, everything's got to move in the right sequence, and along the way, I think we're going to keep those trains moving in the right direction and on time. And if that happens, we'll get it out of the House in early April, maybe as soon as April 3rd, and then move it over to the Senate, that would put that bill on the president's desk for signature by the end of April. That would be fantastic.
So you're talking about the first 100 days?
In a worst-case scenario, Memorial Day.
You're talking
we
about
are. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, and the worst case, you say, will be Memorial Day.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I guess there's a fear.
And we'll do it as quickly as possible. Yeah.
And I guess there's a fear that without getting all of the elements in one place, you could lose some members, right? There are some members that have priorities in taxes. They want the SALT deduction back in place. Those New York lawmakers, do you lose those lawmakers on the border if the tax issues are not in that one bill? Is that the fear?
Well, actually, that's the benefit of doing it all together, because no one's going to love every element of a large package like that. But there'll be enough elements in there to pull everyone along. They'll be able to justify not getting all of their preferences on some of their big issues because there'll be so many other very important pieces to that one piece of legislation. So I think keeping it together is how we'll actually get it done, and there's some real value to that.
Mr. Speaker, let me get your take on where this is going in terms of the impact. People need to see an impact on the economy, right, in order to feel secure and confident about re-electing Republicans in the midterms. Is that a consideration?
Yeah, that's a big part of this. I mean, we're doing this to deliver relief to the American people. And the Bidenomics inflation has just utterly destroyed American families and their own budgets at home. The cost of living is out of control, and we know how to address it. Remember, we did this in the first Trump administration. We brought about the greatest economy in the history of the world before COVID because we reduced taxes and we reduced regulations. That's the basic formula. But the sooner that we do it, the better. As you
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Somebody just asked about the inflation rate in the chat. So currently, right now, during the Biden administration, I mean, it was really bad before now, but as of right now, the current inflation rate is 2.7%. Okay? It's 2.7%. It was worse. Okay? I mean, 2.7% is like bad, but it is currently 2.7%. And in 2019, when the OG was there, Donald Trump, in case you don't know, okay, it was 1.8%. All right? It was 1.8%. And sometimes it was like 1.6, 1.8. So, yeah. Do we have it bad right now compared to how we used to have it in 2019, 2020? Absolutely. Okay, that's why we had affordability during the Trump administration, during his first term, compared to now.
You say, Maria. So that's why we're going to be so aggressive about getting this through in the first 100 days, because we'll begin to see the effects of the economy very quickly. And that will be important for the midterm elections in 2 years. You know, the historical trend is once a new president is elected, his party almost always loses seats in the House in the first midterm election for lots of different reasons. But we believe we can defy that historic trend because we're going to deliver on this agenda.
And in terms of the money for the border, is the $100 billion the number that you've come up with in terms of what is needed to secure that border?
Well, it's such an enormous task because so many millions and millions of illegals have been allowed over that border. And by the way, a number of very dangerous persons with terrorist cells, we think, set up probably all over the country. We'll talk about that later. But it's going to take a lot of resources to get this done right. We believe we can move some money around in the early part of the year in existing accounts. And we're talking with Russ Vought at the Office of Management and Budget and everyone involved, our new cabinet secretaries, about that. But then we'll have to replenish those funds clearly. So if we do that in the first 3 or 4 months of the Congress, we'll be able to get the resources necessary to secure the border and protect the American people. That's what they demand and deserve, and it is long overdue, Maria.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the Congress is expected to certify the 2024 election, January 6th. Can you tell us what to expect?
Well, I hope we have full attendance. We got a big snowstorm coming to D.C., and we encourage all of our colleagues, do not leave town, stay here, because, as you know, the Electoral Count Act requires this on January 6th at 1 p.m. So whether we're in a blizzard or not, we are going to be in that chamber making sure this is done. Listen, President Trump had a mandate, a landslide, you know, so many electoral votes, and we get to count them all, and we cannot delay that certification. He deserves that. 77 million Americans Republicans voted for President Trump and this agenda. Almost 75 million for the House. That's our highest number ever. So we call it a mandate. I believe it is, and we got to get to work beginning immediately on Monday.
And Speaker, before you go, a word on New Orleans and now new worries over terrorism. Does that impact the agenda? And what can you tell us about your constituents since this morning in New Orleans?
Well, you know, this event has really shaken my home state of Louisiana and really people all over the country, because it's another reminder that under 4 years of the Biden administration and Department of Homeland Security and the agencies that are in charge of keeping us safe, they took their eye off the ball. They were not prioritizing enough the terrorism threat that would be obvious with an open border. And we don't know the direct correlation yet. The investigation's ongoing with how much this was involved with an open border, whether some of the materials used, et cetera, came over that way. But we do know that this is something that reminds us again that the new Trump nominees for these important positions need to be in place as quickly as possible. We're in a dangerous situation in the country. All the red lights are flashing, as FBI Director Chris Wray testified himself to Congress multiple times, and we have to take this threat seriously. New Orleans was
I'm telling y'all, man. Speaker Mike Johnson is definitely one of the real ones. You can, everybody has their own reservation, like I mentioned, but I like him. He is skillful with his communication. He's very articulate, and he knows what he's doing.
a very sad and tragic reminder of that.
It sure was.
Yeah, man, for sure. We cannot have another New Orleans happen in the United States. All right, what's next?
Well, U.S. and Mexican officials discovering a secret tunnel in Mexico near the border wall with the help of drones last month. Mexican police call it a narco tunnel used for trafficking drugs and people into the U.S.
It's the third time one of these tunnels was found near Yuma, Arizona last year. Executive Director for the Center for a Secure and Free Society, visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Joseph Humeyer joins us now. Joseph, good to see you. So, I was struck by the fact that this was found by both U.S. officials in coordination with Mexican officials. Does that tell us anything about maybe the Mexican authorities realizing that they're going to have to start actually participating in securing the border?
Well, we've had good cooperation with Mexican authorities on tactical issues. What happens is when you want to get to strategic issues or when you want to get to very high level against the Mexican cartels, that collaboration tends to break down, particularly under the most recent government. But there's a new government in Mexico and there's a new president in the United States. So I'm hoping that cooperation could enhance. But as far as the tunnels, I mean, we have this refrain in the military. We say amateurs talk strategy, but professionals talk logistics. And what you see on the border is some of the most advanced logistical networks that are that the cartels build because they're powered by massive amounts of money. I mean, you have the global drug industry that's $360 billion, the human trafficking industry that's $240 billion. I mean, the amount of money that's being poured into these illicit enterprises is giving them all the best technologies to go around law enforcement. So this is going to be a major challenge, I think, for both the Mexican government and the new Trump administration. And they need to focus on this logistics because it's the logistics that powers it. Just like it does in a war, the supply lines power the militaries. In this case, the logistics power the cartels and allows them to do all the stuff that they do.
Joseph, I want to look you to consider this. So this has just come out that this is a new stat. Violent drug cartels are now Mexico's 5th largest employer. They're operating right along the southern border, but also inside of Mexico. I've been concerned for a long time. As you know, Joseph, we've been having these conversations for a while, that the open border and the enrichment and empowering of these cartels would turn Mexico into a narco state. Is that where we're at right now? If they're the 5th largest employer, that's insane.
No, that's 100% the direction that Mexico's going. This is a tremendous concern. We cannot afford for Mexico to become a Venezuela. It's our neighbor, it's our trade partner, and we share a very long border. And what happens, and this is the biggest concern, especially on these border towns, is, as you know, Rachel, like, if enterprise doesn't stop just because you stop governing. So basically, at any given moment, society has two enterprises, right? A free enterprise that we're all involved in, and then an illegal, an illicit enterprise. And when the illicit enterprise, the incentives are driven more towards predation than production, the illicit enterprise takes over the free enterprise. That means it becomes rentable. One day you're a truck driver for a multinational, the next day you're a truck driver for a cartel. And that's what's happening on these border towns. The incentives are aligning so that the illicit enterprise is dominating the free enterprise. Why is that? It's because the Mexican government, the Mexican economy has not been boosted up. It's been stifled down. That was the big problem with López Obrador's policies. His policies of nationalizing the oil industry, of going after the private sector, was pushing more and more the incentives towards the cartels, and they were taking over these towns. And not to mention our open border. Open border basically just gave all the money, all the incentives into the illicit enterprise, and that's why we have the problem that we have today.
Yeah, Joseph, many Americans don't understand that in many towns, the cartel is the police for that town.
Yeah.
They are the security for that town. And obviously, this corrupts politicians as well, who go, if I need to operate in this area, I've got to coordinate with the cartels. This is a very dangerous situation. They are our closest and most important neighbor. So this is a big task for the Trump administration moving forward. Joseph Humar, you're always on top of these issues. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Of course. I mean, the cartels have always been an issue in Mexico. It's been like that for years, many, many years. It's not a new conversation. Why are they acting like it's a new thing? Oh, the cartels just start. Nope. They've been doing this for decades. Matter of fact, probably centuries. Because they've been doing this for a very long time. So this ain't new news.
Today, we want to focus on filling in some of the gaps and giving you a greater understanding of the planning that went into this horrible attack by Shamsuddin Jabbar. We are also sharing videos showing Jabbar placing the IEDs on Bourbon Street and videos he took as he plotted this hideous attack. Thanks to information provided by you, the public, this investigation is crossing state and international borders as our agents follow leads in Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, and international.
Okay, I don't want us to watch this right now. We're going to come back to it because I want us to actually see the full thing. For now, we're going to check other stories out.
The Biden administration has taken more action on climate change than any other president, allocating billions in funds for programs like reducing greenhouse gas, expanding EV chargers, pushing for clean school buses, and going off the grid. So what should the top priorities be for the Trump administration to roll back the costly climate agenda? Joining us now is Mark Morano. He's the publisher of ClimateDepot.com. Mark, it's always great to have you on. So you were on our friend Joe Piscopo's show, sort of fantasizing about having the shortest lived federal job, 2 weeks for you to go and clean out all these wasteful climate directives and policies. So tell us what you would do in those 2 weeks, how you would advise President Trump to deal with all this waste and climate directives.
Well, from the Department of Transportation to the Department of Energy to the Pentagon. In fact, Biden made every climate agency a climate agency. My fantasy was to have the shortest lived job in federal history, go in for about 2 weeks, shorter than some Trump's previous press secretaries, but we won't get into that. But go in and literally defund and close all of the woke climate programs, particularly starting in places like the Navy or in the Pentagon, Department of Army, where they actually have all these climate initiatives and they actually have the mission of the Army and the Navy as one of their focuses is going after fighting climate change, which, by the way, isn't a thing. There's no such thing as climate action or fighting climate change. Even the Department of Transportation, in Obama's department, they had studies looking at how fatal car crashes went up due to global warming. You have to cut the funding, you have to cut the programs, you have to fire the employees at the very least, since you can't, hard to fire people, reassign them. I would love to preside over that, shut all this nonsense down, the most egregious examples, and then walk away from federal service, because that's what needs to be done, is they have to be shut immediately. But even beyond that, Rachel, so much of this is the narrative in recasting this entire global fight. But of course, the biggest of all, and this has to come from Donald Trump, he has to submit the UN Paris Agreement, the Climate Pact, to the United States Senate as a treaty, get the Senate to reject it and treat it as a treaty. And then that gets us out of not only that agreement, but of the entire UN climate process going back to 1992, when George H.W. Bush got us into the whole mess at the Rio Earth Summit in 1992, because he wanted Republicans to appear Earth-friendly. So he gets us involved in this UN sustainable development mess. It's time for Donald Trump 2.0 to reverse, what was that, 32 years?
I'm not even going to cap. Yo, I'm not even going to cap. Trump, he's definitely going to say, you know what? No climate situation, no Green New Deal, no NATO, no United Nations. This is going to be what he's going to say. He's going to say this stuff. Okay. He's going to probably say, you know what, NATO? Yeah, that's it. Bye. United Nation, that's it. I'm gone. Okay. Green New Deal, end of story. I'm telling you, these are the things he's going to do. And in my opinion, this is going to bring money back to the United States and bring prosperity back to the United States. So unnecessary spending, if you don't have to spend, why do you spend? And that's what the government is currently doing right now, spending money like drunken sailors.
Years ago, that mess that began 33 years ago.
No question about it. You also said that you want Donald Trump to set up a sort of new climate committee that would include scientists who are skeptics of this so-called science.
This is frustrating because Trump 1.0, the first term, he brought in the premier expert on greenhouse gases, Dr. Will Happer from Princeton University. He was Trump's science advisor. He was all set to do the first pushback on the UN climate reports, which began in 1990, by any government around the world. The first pushback scientifically going to have several dozen of the world's top scientists, including former UN scientists, Nobel Prize winning scientists, former NASA scientists, Harvard and Yale scientists, all were prepared to go. Donald Trump greenlit it, but his staff slow walked it till it was too late to do before the 2020 election. This time around, if he does this climate committee and you have the sort of red team, blue team, it will be the first ever by a government pushback of the UN climate report. This would be the shot heard around the world, be the first time a narrative changer on climate change. No longer would it the only narrative be, we have 10 years left till we die, we need climate action, net zero, we have to stop allowing gas-powered cars. This would actually change that whole narrative, and this would help Argentina, help the Eastern European countries, all who are itching to join President Trump on what I call a Clexit, the climate exit from the UN summit, UN climate treaty, which is similar to the Brexit. But this time we have to do it on the climate issue.
And hopefully it might also put an end to all the child slaves that are in Africa digging for cobalt for this agenda. My goals are a little less lofty. I just want a dishwasher that works. Well, I do want the slave labor in China to end, but I also want a dishwasher that actually works, that I don't have to clean the dish before I put it in the dishwasher and then run it twice. So let's hope for that, too, in the new year and in the new administration. Mark Morano, so great to have you.
Look, everybody has their own opinion, okay? Everybody has their own opinion. Somebody was talking about Elon Musk being the commander-in-chief. That's absolute cap. Okay, that's a lie. All right? But this is what this is what they have. Lies, and they try to divide and conquer. Okay, this is what they do. They try to divide and conquer. But there's nothing to divide here because Elon Musk happens to be the richest man in the world financially. Like I always say, there's so many ways to be rich. You could be rich in family, you could be rich in love, you could be rich in goodness in your heart or whatever. But he is the richest man financially in the world, and Trump happens to be the most powerful man on earth. And that's just the facts, okay? Because he is the president of the United States. It is what it is, okay? I'm not talking about in another planet. I'm talking about in the world, Trump, as soon as he becomes the president. Matter of fact, right now, he is probably top 3 most influential human being in the world. Now, he will become the most powerful man as soon as he becomes the president of the United States, because the United States is known to be the giant of the world. So you have the most powerful man on earth, and then you have the wealthiest man on earth. What do you expect? Double trouble. Double trouble.
The far-left media is piling on President-elect Trump for raising awareness of the terror threats at the border. Instead, they say U.S. military veterans are the real threat.
The simple fact is, this country has suffered more deadly terrorism at the hands of American-born citizens who are veterans of the United States military than people who have crossed into this country at the southern border. It is very clear from the evidence that if you want to worry about terrorism in this country, the United States Army is a much bigger problem than the southern border.
That's not all. Quote, young white men are apparently also the problem.
The problem here is that you jump on one sort of crime, one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face, rather than looking at all of the domestic terror that we face, including what the FBI says, is a really big problem, which is young white men in America.
According to the latest CBP data, border officials have encountered at least 395 non-citizens with suspected ties to terror under the Biden administration, compared to just 14 during Trump's first term. But they aren't hearing any of it.
I think we've all come to expect, sadly, that in the midst of some disaster or some terrible attack, Donald Trump will be chomping at the bit to unleash lies and the worst kind of bigotry. It can be really very dangerous.
He's stoking fear. Illegals, illegals, illegals. Nothing gets the Republican base more afraid than when you put that stuff out there.
What President-elect Trump did yesterday, deeply irresponsible, if not surprising.
Here he goes again. He talks about everybody else being fake news, and he's the one peddling fake news.
Joey, I'm going to begin with you, go to you straight away.
Yeah, first of all, Lawrence O'Donnell can kiss my ass. To say something like that, I mean, I'm sorry, the 20 years we spent at war defending this country, dying from suicide and bombs, I thought had erased the "you're a baby killer," but I guess it hadn't. I guess they're right back to it. Everything else the Democrats have tried has failed, so why not go there? Why not blame the military? Why not blame the veterans? Why not blame the 25 million veterans in this country that have served it honorably and have sacrificed for it? Because you can point out a dozen over the last 40 years that have done something terrible. What's funny to me is he's hinging on this terrorism idea, like specifically terrorism, that military veterans are terrorists. Listen, we had Saudi Arabians come in this country and take 2 airplanes and fly them into buildings, and we still don't know how in the hell that happened. I'm sorry, that's an immigration issue, right? I mean, is it not? Americans die at 200 plus a day from fentanyl pushed here by cartels. Those aren't terrorist organizations. They're not creating terror. They're not hanging people's heads on spikes in Mexico to send a message to those that would go against them. You can be as liberal as you want to be in this country and say anything you want to say. But to sit there and say, to justify an open border policy, or maybe just because you hate Trump that much, to say that the United States Army is a breeding ground for terrorists is not only shameful, it's absolutely despicable. And thank God that little small human being doesn't sit in front of me in person anytime soon, because the Georgia in me would come out in a heartbeat. That is absolutely insane. And the reason why it bothers me so much is if you look at this narrative that we have for what happened in Las Vegas, there's all kind of conspiracy theory around it, and I don't trust in my government enough to say any of it is true or false, but what we know in fact is that this guy served his country honorably for 18 years. And by all accounts of what he left was not trying to hurt anyone but himself, because he was to the point of delusion from the trauma he received going to war for this country. It's tragic, it's wrong, it's illegal, it's criminal, it's completely irresponsible, even if he thought he wasn't going to hurt someone. But it's not freaking evil like driving down a sidewalk and mowing people over. So that veteran is not the same as the other veteran. And for someone like Lawrence O'Donnell that's been in this business as long as I've been alive to say something like that, I mean, Jesus Christ, they've lost all sense of decency, and it's just about getting the right headline in front of the right people.
I'm not even going to cap, yo. This is why I always say that thank you to the veterans, thank you to the military people, If you're serving in the military, thank you so much. Because it's not easy. It's not easy at all. People think it's sweet. You know, you get the VA loan, you could buy a house without money down and stuff like that. This is why a lot of people want to join the military. Okay, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna get good health care and all that stuff and buy a home on VA loan, but it's not that sweet. Okay, if you get deployed, it's not that sweet. Okay, it ain't sweet. Okay, so you got to respect the military people, and I think they should be treated with more care and more love and more decency. Okay, and in the chat spoke about Tesla Cybertruck having cameras inside and outside and everywhere. The news media only tells us what they actually want us to know. Okay, because I mean, it is what it is. We can do our own due diligence. Okay, like I could get more information. At the end of the day, it's like if you think about it, these guys would only bring to you what you need to see. All right, it's like when people were like in New York, in I think when Trump said they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats. People were like, well, there's no, who would eat the cats and dogs? Well, I have a video for you right here. And things like this, you have to go search for it. Okay, you have to go search for it. Check this out. Like normally people will say this is a lie, right? But this is in New York. This happened probably like 2 days ago. This is in New York right here. Wait, let me confirm when this happened. Yeah, this happened yesterday. This is in New York. When Trump said they're eating the dogs and the cat, people were like, he just says a bunch of BS. But here is whoever this is on American soil. He's about to go make oh my god. Now, if Trump came out and say they're eating the birds, everybody's gonna say, "Come on, Trump, come on, man, they ain't eating no goddamn bird." But this is whoever this is. I don't know if it's like illegal immigration or I don't know, but this is a New Yorker. I don't know if he's like a New Yorker, but this is a person in New York. Halal. I know, like I ate halal food in New York because I schooled in New York. So it says New York halal food cart worker caught on video catching pigeons with bare hands. He wasn't born in the United States because there's no way Americans would catch. Like if you were born in the United States, you definitely soft. There's no way you're gonna be you're gonna be catching birds with your hands. You're gonna be. But if you were born on the other side, you definitely catching birds with your hands. Tell you that much. So when Trump said they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cat, people were like saying Trump was delusional. He was deluded. I guess now you can see this. He wasn't deluded. It is facts. It is facts. Okay, facts. They are eating the goddamn dogs and cats.
Joint session to certify the 2024 election. A once uneventful part of the presidential transition process became a day of infamy from the events of exactly 4 years ago tomorrow. And of course, that's when a violent mob infiltrated the Capitol as President Trump protested his loss in a free and fair election. It was a moment that many on both sides of the aisle thought would end Trump's political power for good. Here we are, 4 years later, preparing to see the former president and president-elect take the final step in the election process and secure his second term. So how exactly did we get here? Well, CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton has crunched numbers and is here to explain. So, Harry, a lot has changed in 4 years, especially when it comes to Trump and the GOP. Walk us through it.
Yeah, all right. So, remember, after January 6th, what do we have? We had the impeachment of Donald Trump, and then, of course, we had the trial in the United States Senate. And I want you to take a look at Republicans who voted to impeach or convict Trump in his second impeachment or impeachment trial. You go back to January, February of 2021. What was it? It was 17. That's a significant chunk of folks, right, Manu? It wasn't most of the GOP didn't, but 17 is a pretty big number here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you go to January of 2025. How many of those folks are still in the United States Congress? It's just 5. It's just 5. Pretty much the ones who did were all run out of town. They're just 2 House members, 3 Senate members who remain. The bottom line is this, and we'll say over and over and over again. This is Donald Trump's Republican Party. That's why he could pick up the phone, make those calls to ensure that Mike Johnson held on to his speakership. But it's not just within the Republican Party. It's nationally among the general populace as well. So take a look at Donald Trump's net favorable rating. Take a look here. Trump's net favorability rating. You go back to January 2021. Donald Trump was way underwater at minus 20 points. That's your favorable minus your unfavorable. Look, he's still a little bit underwater, but he's now at minus 1 point. He's considerably more popular. So folks who are
these guys, they know how to get you with colors. I mean, take a look at this. Take a look at this, y'all. So they're saying in 2021, this is what CNN is saying, all right. In 2021, he was down negative 20 points. And in 2025, he's just down by 1 point. But take a look at the color they're using to depict whatever they're analyzing. So January 21, 20%, minus 20 points, right? It's in black color. But in 2025, lower number, -1, and it's in red. You can never make this up.
Donald Trump was way underwater at minus 20 points. That's your favorable minus your unfavorable. Look, he's still a little bit underwater, but he's now at minus 1 point. He's considerably more popular. So folks who are writing off Donald Trump's political career, writing his political obituary, he rose up from the grave. He almost looks like one of those WWE characters, right, who kind of rose up. And that is what Donald Trump has did. He's right now broke even. He's about as popular with the American public, Manu, than he has ever been.
Wow. And he's been talking about it on the first day when he comes into office, pardoning all these January 6th prisoners. How does that fare with the American public's view?
Yeah, how does that fare? Well, I will tell you, it ain't popular. It ain't popular. Donald Trump may be more popular than he's ever been, but the idea of him pardoning these January 6th protesters is simply put not a popular proposition. You look overall, it's 33%. It's 33%. Look at the opposition. 59% of the American public, you can barely get 59% of the American public to agree on anything, but they do agree on opposing Trump pardoning the January 6th protesters. Even among the Republican Party, look at this number. Yes, it's 2/3 who support it at 67%, but Donald Trump's favorable rating within the Republican Party is like 85, 90%.
That's low for Trump.
This is low for Trump. You have this 21% who are opposed to it. That is a pretty significant chunk of folks who are opposed to it. So yes, Republicans like Donald Trump, but they aren't necessarily in love with the idea of pardoning, certainly not overall. Now, you may be asking yourself, okay, how the heck then did Donald Trump win that election back in November, right? Given that you see this support and you see this opposition among the American public, and most Americans, I will note in our CNN poll, said that they expected that Trump was going to try and pardon him. How did it work then? Well, take a look at January 6th memories. Take a look here. All right. January 6th is the biggest memory of Trump's first term. Look at this.
Wow.
It's just 5.
That is something.
It's just 5%. I mean, most folks simply put were willing to dismiss it without much of an issue. And among Republicans, what do we see? It was just 2%. So even though you had that significant chunk of Republicans who said we oppose it, even though the vast majority of Americans opposed it, the bottom line, when it came to November, even when it comes now, most Americans, simply put, Manu, are not thinking about it.
And of course, everything that happened on January 6, 2021 was because of Trump sowing doubts over a free and fair election. How is that in line with the way American public views what happened in the 2020 elections?
Yeah, I mean, this to me, remember, he brought along Republicans, and this is just such a fascinating trend line. The 2020 votes were cast or counted accurately. You go back to 2021, this is among Republicans, it was 31%. You look just before this election, October of 2024, it was 32%, basically the same number. Then all of a sudden, December of 2024, it jumps up to 44%. Well, what the heck happened? Well, what happened was Donald Trump won the November 2024 election. All of a sudden, folks were far more likely to believe, hey, wait a minute, those votes were cast and counted accurately. But here, I think, is the biggest thing, the biggest sort of takeaway, which was election votes cast or counted accurately. The 2020 election, remember, we mentioned Republicans at 44%. Democrats were at 89% in the 2020 election. Not a big surprise, Joe Biden won that. But look at the 2024 election. Look at Republicans. 94% of Republicans believe that the 2024 votes were cast and counted accurately. Democrats saw a drop-off from 89 to 73. But again, Democrats far more likely to believe that even if their side lost, that the results were counted, the results were accurately reflective of the people's wills than Republicans were, Manu.
All right, the wizard Harry Enten breaking it all down. Thank you. Let's talk about.
Okay, before we keep going, did you know that in New York right now there is something called a congestion pricing? There's a congestion pricing, which in turn is a toll. Okay, congestion relief zone, toll, easy pass. It's now $9. Overnight is $2.25. So now in New York, you have to pay a toll to actually drive because everywhere is congested. Okay, well, welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. New York now has a congestion relief zone.
A little bit more at this panel. Olivia, you were at the Capitol on January 6th. I was also in the Capitol on January 6th. And I remember talking to a lot of Republicans at the time. They thought Trump was done. They did not think he was going to come back at all. They were disgusted about what happened. They were disgusted, frankly, at Trump's actions in the run-up and everything that happened in the aftermath of him trying to overturn the election. But talk about the way that Republicans have systematically rewritten the narrative about what happened on January 6th and how that has happened since over the last 4 years.
I think around 6 months after the Capitol attack, that's when I started realizing there was sort of this online push of undermining, challenging, and rewriting what happened on January 6th. It wasn't as bad as it was claimed in the media. People weren't armed, and the media was inflating it. Then it sort of percolated into House Republican psyche, where they were sort of dismissing it as well. I think that there was a feeling like every Republican was being unfairly blamed for what happened that day among the House GOP. And so they started pushing away, I think, what the important lesson of that day was and tried to kind of put it in the corner. But then you saw Biden using it again and again on the campaign trail, talking about January 6th, talking about the important need to protect democracy. And that made some of the Republicans, especially sort of the far right corner, push even further away. But that's why I also think it was really important to have people like you and me there, because we saw how horrendous that day was. It was chaotic, and I still don't even have like a very good idea of the chain of events, but I do remember how terrified people were and that we were holding pens in order to prepare ourselves of being attacked if we went into the Capitol hallway. So you were hearing gas canisters going off, you were hearing gunshots, and sometimes you couldn't discern what was happening. And so I'm really glad that reporters captured it.
Yeah.
And this is what Donald Trump has been so brilliant at is, it's just whitewashing history. And so many of his interviews that he does when he's asked about January 6th, he makes false assertions about what happened.
Day of love.
Didn't happen. It was a day of love, exactly. And I think that, it's been interesting to watch, obviously, as we mentioned, the vice president will certify the electoral votes on Monday. It's been interesting to see President Biden kind of trying over the last week to remind people, whether it was awarding the Medal of Honor to the Medal of
Liz
Cheney. Yeah. There's so many medals this week. Valor, honor. And making a point in his remarks that 2020 was a fair and free election. Also honoring Benny Thompson. Both of them got a standing ovation in the room. And Kamala Harris on Monday, that she really believes this is an important part of sort of restoring historic norms.
Okay, so you guys hear how this lady right here is talking about J6. Oh, J6 was so God, I can't even remember what J6 was so bad. All right, here's a video of J6. The cops actually giving a supposed J6 offender fist bump. Take a look at this. This is real life, man. You can't even make this up, yo. You can never make this up, yo. You know, I bring you this sauce right here, man. I bring you the sauce. Genesis brings you the sauce, man. This is a madhouse right here. Check this out. Check this out right here. You can never make this up, yo. Take a look at this. Look at this. It says new footage shows J6 protester being unhandcuffed. Oh my God. And fist bumped by Capitol security. It's the setup. Look at that. Look at the fist bump, y'all. Look at the fist bump. Don't miss the fist bump, y'all. Look at that. Look. I'm gonna pause it. Oh my God. I need to pause it right there. Look. Fist bumping. So this guy is supposed to be a protester and is fist bumping the police. He's fist bumping the police and he's supposed to be a chaotic person, destroying the Capitol, and is fist bumping the police. Oh, I see. Wonderful. I'll play it again, y'all. Look at him. Chilling with the cops. Literally chilling with the cops. Look at him. This is what happened on J6, y'all. This is what happened on J6. Nobody wants to talk about it, but this is what happened on J6. All right. This is what happened. Play that video one more time so you guys see. And what is actually going on in the UK? You can't make this up, y'all. So there you have it. J6. Some people say they don't believe in J6. Some people say J6 was a scam or whatever. But that type of video just makes you feel like, what is J6 actually a thing or not? You know, you just never know. All right, here is the toll situation in New York. Let's go, let's flow, let's roll. So in New York now, you're going to have to pay to drive your car. Oh my goodness. You can never make this up, y'all. You could never make this up. And for the people who have also been wondering about the Las Vegas explosion, we also have a very, very close video of the explosion. Check this out. You can look. It's a lot going on in the United States right now, y'all. It's a lot. Look at this.
Causing the truck to explode outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Footage later shows the moment explosives were detonated, causing the truck to explode outside.
It's like you can tell, like if you like check it, you can see somebody's head in there moving before the actual explosion. You see? All right, so I got the exact spot. Look at me. I just paused it for you. Take a look at that. That was the moment it happened. And there's so many news now that we're just getting right now about this guy, this explosion, and all of this stuff. And it's just wild. But I mean, you can tell, you can see the guy in there, right there. It's a sad story, but it is what it is. And I just hope his family can just, take heart and continue living their lives, because he did this on the first day of a new year. Whatever he was going through was definitely hard. Absolutely hard. And I'm glad nobody actually, died apart from him, but it's still a sad story. Unlike the New Orleans situation.
All right, for more on this, let's bring in former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, great to have you with us today. We both watched CB Cotton's report, and she said that Judge Juan Merchan wants to sentence President-elect Trump to an unconditional discharge out of respect for the presidential immunity doctrine, and that means no prison time, no jail time, anything like that. But, to many looking at this, it does seem vindictive. Can you explain to us what this means?
Yeah, it does seem like vindictive, and this case really is lawfare at its worst, and more so on the Alvin Bragg end of it. But basically what he's doing is saying the conviction will stand, but there won't be any punishment at all. So again, that sort of begs the question, why not just dismiss the case and let us move on? And if you look at the immunity decision, and the immunity decision basically from the Supreme Court said Donald Trump had immunity the entire time. It wasn't that they just created immunity for him in that decision. And the whole purpose was so that Donald Trump or any president could do their job without the fear of state officials or other officials interfering with it. And we're at a unique phase, this transition phase, which although he's not the president.
This is like the wildest sentencing I've ever heard. So you're going to sentence someone to nothing. So you're going to say no penalty, but you're sentencing them so they can have that on their record, and it's going to the White House. So you just want the president to have the record going into the White House. That's the only thing you want. Like, what is that? Oh, we're going to sentence him, but no penalties for it. So you're saying no jail time, no fine, no probation, But we're still going to sentence him, though. But just shit.
President now, this is a critically important phase where he's putting together his administration that's set to take effect on January 20th. The last thing he needs is to be distracted and disrupted.
Y'all think about this. So a duly elected president, Donald J. Trump, over 76 million people voted for him. He won all swing state. He won electoral college. Okay. He won the popular vote. He's going to be sentenced before he becomes the president of the United States. But they're saying no penalties, meaning no jail time, no probation, no nothing. However, the president's son, the 46th president of the United States, President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, was pardoned. The son of the president, Hunter Biden, was pardoned, but a duly elected president is going to be sentenced. You can't make this shit up, though.
By this sentencing, which again isn't going to lead to anything. But another point that Judge Marchand, it seems to be missing out on is this doesn't end the case, because Donald Trump can appeal this case, and he certainly will, and he has multiple avenues for a successful appeal, most notably the presidential immunity decision. So this case will continue on during his term, which again, it doesn't make any sense. There's no societal interest in this case going forward. And really at this point, the only people that seem to really defend this case are Judge Marchand and Alvin Bragg. Nobody else, even the most hardened Democrats, know this case was lawfare, and everyone is somewhat embarrassed by this case. And it really would make Judge Marchand and Alvin Bragg in particular would really restore some credibility to the justice system by just letting this case go and be dismissed outright.
Yeah, to your point, what interest does it serve? Judge Juan Marchand says he wants to honor the jury's decision here. Trump is on social media calling this whole case a charade that should have been dead on arrival. I guess, legal scholars will debate this for some time to come. But in the meantime, now the Trump team is going to have to try to stop this sentencing. Is there any chance that they can do that? They can stop this January 10th sentencing?
I think there's a chance they could appeal his ruling to a higher court, or maybe even try to take it to federal court again and make the presidential immunity argument as it relates to the transition. So I think there's a chance, and it really makes sense for this case just to go away. And just the other thing is, if Donald Trump wins on immunity, this case could be back in front of Judge Marchand during Donald Trump's term. So again, this thing never really goes away unless it's dismissed. I think a higher court should get involved and say the greater societal good is, getting rid of this case. Certainly Alvin Bragg has more than enough to do in New York with people getting pushed in front of subways and other things like that, that this shouldn't be high on his priority list, and it should have never been on his priority list. But yeah, there is a chance. I think they will do that. If not, there'll be the sentencing next week, where Judge Marchand will probably make some sort of speech, again, trying to justify this case as its legitimacy, and then Donald Trump could go on to appeal. But it really is not worth the distraction. We just had a terrorist attack. We have all of these things. He needs to put his administration together, and this is a needless distraction, not only for him, but everyone in the country, when there's far more important things going on.
Yeah, just a quick answer here. Judge Marchand has said if the Trump team is able to stop this sentencing, then he will pursue this after Trump leaves office, actually seek to sentence Trump after he leaves office. He would be 82 years old. Just a quick answer. What is the point of that at that point?
There is no point other than justifying this case, because it doesn't serve any legitimate interest. The point they're making, it's always contradicted by what's actually going on. They're trying to say this sort of restores or maintains integrity of the justice system. But this case, more than any of the lawfare cases, has harmed the justice system, not just in New York, but nationwide.
Yeah. Well, we will see what happens on January 10th. We will all be watching that. Thank you so much for your legal insight today, Jonathan Fahey.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.
All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is.
House Republicans holding a weekend strategy session looking ahead to President-elect Trump's new term as Speaker Johnson reveals Trump favors a conservative policy overhaul in one sweeping package. Joining us now with more from that meeting is GOP Congress.
My daughter just got up right now, and guess what she said? She said, "Daddy, I was dreaming about going on vacation." I was like, "So what do you want to do? You want to go back to bed, or you want to go on vacation?" She was like, "I want to go on vacation." I'm like, "Bro, this kid," and she's only 5.
Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, great to see you this morning. So you've had a fun week. You all had some drama on Friday, but you came up with a speaker. And then you all met, huddled privately off campus yesterday. Tell us about that meeting and what you all arrived at.
Well, I thought it was a tremendous meeting. And I think that one of the most important things to gain from that meeting is what an historic time we're at right now. The fact that Donald Trump was able to win with a mandate, and the fact that the Republicans were able to take back the Senate and, yes, a very slim majority in the House. But this is a moment where we have to make sweeping changes. We have to make a difference to the American people. And I think we're in a great position to do that. It reminds me of maybe our founding. It's that important, or even what Lincoln faced during the Civil War. We have a president who is a rough-hewn entrepreneur matched with Mike Johnson, who is a constitutional scholar, both courageous, both understand the mission. And I think we're going to be carrying that out. And I think it's a really exciting time to see the two of them, which I think they're an interesting, perfect match, actually, for right now. They're trying to balance, what our founders looked at. How do we preserve freedom but protect our security? That's the border. That's stopping the oppression from the over-bureaucratization, the deep state, so-called, versus freedom, economic freedom, energy, releasing American energy and allowing us to be the dominant player on the world stage. Tax cuts, border, all these things are going to come together to enhance what we call ordered liberty and what our founders envisioned. I think we're right there at a moment to save America. And I think that's what President Trump and Mike Johnson and obviously Leader Thune in the Senate, that was their message.
So I just saw in the chat, somebody said, what policy did you vote for when you voted? If you voted for Kamala, obviously she lost by a landslide. But somebody said, policies for the people, which is not a policy. What do you mean policy for the people and not the wealthiest, i.e. taxes? What does that even mean? That's just an uneducated comment. But education, healthcare, etc., climate change, women's right to name a few. What does that even mean? What does that mean? Like everything you wrote, what does that mean? Huh? We want policies like First Step Act, okay? Prison reform. That's a policy right there. Okay. All right.
And of course, we got to hear from the great Stephen Miller about what his plans are and his leadership as well.
Truly, truly historic, and you couldn't find two more divergent characters working together, which is a good thing. So the general idea, big picture idea, is that we're looking at border, tax cuts, and perhaps debt ceiling all in one package. Is that kind of what y'all are going for, and is that doable?
Yes, well, that's what we're going to have to do. And I think one of the things that Speaker Johnson emphasized is that we need to do this in one large bill because we've got to get it done. We can't miss an opportunity. We only get 2 shots at reconciliation, and that's that procedure in the Senate because we don't have a 60-vote margin. So by doing that, we have certain limitations coming from the Senate parliamentarian, but we've got to get these initiatives done. We have a president who has promised the American people to do it. We've said Speaker Johnson said, keep your powder dry. Let's make sure that we work with every single member, all of their needs and wants, what is in the best interest of the American people. And unity is going to be the order of the day. We can't afford to lose one member. I mean, basically
as
one.
we saw Friday.
And we've got to Yes, well, that was, but this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be very arduous, but I think Speaker Johnson is the perfect person to do this, to work with Donald Trump, who's very forceful, but Speaker Johnson is persistent, he's courageous. He's also very patient and very willing to be sympathetic and listen to the needs of our very diverse conference, which we have to get together. This is historic. We have to put this together. We have to deliver for the American people, and I think we have a unique combination of true patriots that are going to do that.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. Congresswoman Tenney, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Exactly. So somebody said here, tax cut for all. Tax cut for all. It is tax cut for all, but people like saying it's tax cut for the wealthy. And when people say tax cut for the wealthy, how do you actually... No. When people say raise taxes on the wealthy, how do you raise taxes on the wealthy? Can somebody tell me how you raise taxes on the wealthy? Because I would like to know how you actually raise taxes on the wealthy. Because the wealthy don't get paid like you get paid. They don't get paid in cash. They get paid in stocks. So you want to raise taxes on the wealthy? Elon Musk gets paid in shares, in stocks. So he gets paid $50 billion in Tesla shares. How do you tax stocks and shares? You don't tax. You cannot tax that. And guess what they do when they get paid in stocks? They borrow against the stocks. Oh, tax the big corporation. And then you work at the big corporation like Walmart, McDonald's, Microsoft, Tesla. You work there. You tax those big corporations. And then the items they sell gets more expensive. They take more money from your paycheck because tax the wealthy. Thank you. Somebody said here, it says, same thing any American can do. Capital gains. Somebody said capital gains taxes. Capital gains taxes is until you sell. You don't pay capital gains taxes until you sell. If you don't sell, you don't pay taxes. These guys are not selling their stocks, bro. They're just getting loans against their stocks. They're not selling their shares. They're not selling anything. Elon Musk is going to go to Chase and say, I want $50 billion. And they're going to say, oh, sure, for sure, we're going to give it to you. Because they know he has it in stocks. And you don't pay taxes on interest. I know you know that, right? You don't pay taxes on interest. So these guys are way smarter. All y'all talking about tax the rich. Man, you better sit down and go get some money.
Domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland. The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
President Biden's longtime claims under new scrutiny in the wake of that horrific New Orleans attack. As critics argue, the president has downplayed the ISIS threat and put an outsized focus on white supremacy concerns. Joining me now, Washington Congressman Adam Smith. Thank you very much, Congressman, for being here this morning.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the chance.
Thank you. So, sir, throughout his presidency, Biden believed that white supremacy was the greatest threat to the homeland. But 2 months before those last remarks that you just heard, the U.S. intelligence community released its annual threat assessment report. It painted a much different picture. The document mentions Russia 98 times, China 93 times, Iran 46 times, North Korea 25 times. There were 15 mentions of racially motivated violent extremism, but white supremacy was mentioned only once. Did President Biden have his priorities wrong?
No. I mean, that was President Biden's intelligence community that issued that report. Whatever couple of clips you may have picked of what the president said, I think the emphasis of his Justice Department, of his intelligence community, of his Homeland Security Department was always on precisely what that report you just read said it was. It understood the broad threat environment that we face and did its best to try to confront that threat environment.
Well, the FBI told Congress that the suspect in the New Orleans attack, Shamsuddin Jabbar, was not on their radar. They didn't have any intelligence on him. He was not someone that they were watching. Do you believe at all that the president's belief that white supremacy is the greatest threat to the homeland impacted directives that were sent down to federal agencies?
I don't. I mean, look, this was an individual, okay, who had no links, no public links to ISIS. He was radicalized just in the space of the last 9 months, primarily by stuff that had happened in his
9 months is a long time.
Right, so but he wasn't publishing, didn't join a group. Look, I don't believe this at all. Look, there was a terrorist attack when Trump was president by a radicalized Islamic terrorist in Florida at a military base. Okay, do I believe that Trump wasn't paying attention? No. What I hope this makes clear to the incoming Trump administration is the depth of the threats that we face from a variety of different radical organizations. Again, all outlined in that report that you read from Biden's intelligence services, saying we got threats from a whole bunch of different places, and also the lone wolf attack, which has been talked about a long time, an individual who isn't on anyone's radar. So what we need is we need to support local law enforcement. We need to support the FBI. We need to support the Justice Department to do their level best to try to find as many of these as possible. Understanding, and you've heard this quote before, you know, the terrorists only have to be right once. That's the huge challenge that we face. I hope we'll come together as a country to meet that challenge and not try to turn it into a ridiculous partisan argument based on who's the president. It happened under Trump. It happened under Biden. Let's work together to try to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, the attacker's brother told Fox this week that Jabbar joined the military to try to find some direction in life. He spoke to us off camera. Listen to this.
Him being in the military was more trying to find something to set him straight, to ground him. He was looking for some type of guidance to help, you know, in his life.
Both the New Orleans attacker and also the man involved in the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas had military backgrounds. You're the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee. Are you concerned at all about a problem with our service members falling prey to radicalization?
I'm concerned with the problem with the radicalization of people in our country in general. I think it has happened to people who did not serve in the military. So I think to sort of paint a broad brush of service members as uniquely vulnerable to this type of thing, I think that's somewhat denigrating to the people who serve in the military. At the same time,
do you believe there are enough services supporting them?
See, that's where I was going next. Just give me a quick second. I don't want people to say, oh my gosh, the military, it's full of all these people, because I think that's an exaggeration. That's wrong. It's not fair to the military. We do have to do a lot more, I believe, to deal with the mental health issues that people in the military face. PTSD and other issues. A lot of advancements have been made in recent years, a lot of new treatments, certainly, but it is something that we need to emphasize to make sure that service members get our support and help. Because, you know, for the terrorist attack, the number of suicides that are done by people in the military are completely unacceptable and need greater attention.
It's a terrible issue. Yeah. Moving on, though, the first FBI spokesperson who addressed the public after this attack gave wrong information about the case. Take a listen to this.
We'll be taking over the investigative lead for this event. This is not a terrorist event.
We now know that that junior agent, Alethea Duncan, was only speaking because her boss, the special agent in charge of New Orleans, was on vacation. FBI headquarters was so upset, they sent the deputy assistant director from D.C. to take over this. Do you believe that Duncan's statement eroded public trust in investigators? Should she face any consequences for that?
I don't know about that. It was clearly a mistake. And this happens all the time in speculation. Something comes out, people reach conclusions like that. And experienced investigators should know better than that, without question. So I'm not in charge of, you know, discipline within the FBI, but clearly that was a mistake that should not have been made.
At a minimum.
And right there, for that lady right there saying it wasn't a terrorist event, even though it was a terrorist event. I mean, did she have all the information before she made that conclusion or she made that statement? No. So, as an experienced FBI agent, she should have said, you know what, we don't have all the information right now. We're still investigating. And then we're going to come to a conclusion. But she just said it wasn't a terrorist event. And now everybody's saying, why would you say it wasn't a terrorist event when this guy has or had ISIS flag in his trunk? Abu Jabal, whatever his name was, had ISIS flag in his trunk. So it's like, you are an FBI agent. You are a well-trained personnel. You should know that you need to chill, get more information before you conclude it wasn't a terrorist event. But she just went ahead and said it wasn't a terrorist event. So that's when I say it's a bunch of incompetence in the Biden administration. People are going to say, well, it's not true. So I know some people in the chat are going to say, well, did Biden hire the lady when the head is incompetent? Everybody under is definitely incompetent.
Should policies be changed to ensure that senior officials are on hand during major events like New Year's Eve, the Sugar Bowl, Super Bowl?
Yeah, no, that is quite possible, and particularly when you have a period of time when you can suspect a threat. Absolutely.
Do you believe that the federal government's doing enough to secure large-scale events that are coming up like Inauguration? Trump also plans to hold a rally in D.C. the night before Inauguration. Is there sufficient security for that?
Yeah, I believe there will be sufficient security. We see it.
And that's another thing right there. Trump doing a rally on the 19th before his inauguration on the 20th. It's like, OG, I know I get it. OG, I get it. You like speeches and you like to, cater to your supporters. However, it's like, you have to get to the White House, okay? We don't want it. This is a show of strength for sure. This is a show of strength because this is what Trump does. He likes to show that he is a strong leader. However, it's like things are going bonkers in the United States right now. So if you're trying to protect yourself and get to the White House, I don't know. I don't think he should be doing a rally on the 19th. It's called a victory rally on the 19th before the 20th. So, it's going to garner a lot of supporters. A lot of people have now traveled to DC to support him in his, on his inauguration day with J.D. Vance. However, it's like, do I support the victory rally on the 19th? On the 19th, I don't know. I don't know, man, because I want him to be safe and sound so he could do his job after the inauguration. But it is what it is. And I also have a video of a lot of barricade going up in DC right now, just towards the inauguration day. But I don't think that's going to help anything.
Going up all the way around here already. But look, it's a huge challenge, and I think we need to take it very seriously because, regrettably, we live in a time when people are radicalized by a wide variety of different things, and also, as the threat assessment that you read earlier, Russia in particular has really stepped up their hybrid attacks in a variety of different places across the country. So, yeah, we need a heightened level of security for all of these events.
The new Congress has been sworn in. Minority.
So somebody said they want the inauguration to be like a live event on YouTube where, nobody actually. Wait, do you mean like do it outside or do it indoors? Is that what you mean? But I don't know. But, to show strength, there's no way Trump would want to do it indoors. This is something that has been going on outside for decades, for like centuries. So there's no way he would want to do his inside. The OG. There's no way Trump want to do his inside and just stream it to everybody. Nah, Trump wants the world to know. And again, he invited, what's his name? Xi Jinping of China. So a lot of people may be coming to his inauguration. A lot of world leaders. He invited I think the president of France as well. He invited a lot of people. So he's not doing it indoors. There is no way.
Leader Hakeem Jeffries made some headlines with this. Take a listen.
It's okay. There are no election deniers on our side of the aisle.
But in 2018, Jeffries wrote, "The more we learn about 2016 election, the more illegitimate it becomes. America deserves to know whether we have a fake president in the Oval Office." And then he doubled down in 2020. He posted to Trump, "Keep pouting. History will never accept you as a legitimate president." What changed?
Well, I think a lot of Democrats made mistakes in terms of complaining about the 2016 election. I remember vividly, I was on this network like a month after, and this issue came up. I said, he won the election. Let's get over it and stop talking about it. There's a lot of people in a lot of different places. I do find it interesting that Fox News is only concerned about Democratic election deniers. It seems like the Republicans took that whole thing a little bit more seriously in terms of storming the Capitol, in terms of doing all kinds of efforts to actually stop the election, as opposed to just issuing a couple of comments. So yeah, people will get emotional about elections. Nobody should try to stop an election from being certified. In fact, tomorrow, snow willing, we will be certifying President Trump's election. You will not see Democrats stand up and protest that. You will certainly not see them storm the United States Capitol to try and stop that certification. We accept the election of President Trump, and we will do our best to work with him going forward.
Well, I would argue that this network covered all sorts of election deniers across the spectrum. But do you expect any of your colleagues to put up any challenges tomorrow when the election is certified?
Somebody was asking, will the Pope be there? I think he invited the Pope as well, but I don't think, he's going to leave Vatican City and come. I don't know.
I don't know. There's a lot of us. I don't think so. But gosh, go back to 2000 and I think 2016, there was, I think, one House member, Democrat, who, protested the election then. Didn't have a senator, so it didn't go anywhere. But there's a lot of us, but I can tell you 99% of Democrats, this is the way the election went out, and we're going to go work with the new government.
Finally, with just 30 seconds left, the speaker held onto the gavel, but it did take some muscle from Trump. Yeah. How are Democrats going to work with the incoming administration to make sure that bills get passed and government functions?
Yeah, it's going to be hard. And look, the biggest challenge is going to be on the budget reconciliation process. House Republicans are meeting this weekend to try to figure that out. Promising to cut taxes, not cut spending, balance. It's going to be tough, but we'll work with them.
Congressman Adam Smith, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
It is what it is. And I'm so happy for Mike Johnson. A lot of people are like, Mike Johnson is going to be bad, whatever. Look, Mike Johnson was loyal to the OG, so y'all keep it together. This is what I don't appreciate about Republicans. They don't know how to rally together, come together, hold hands, and support each other. Okay, this is the time. You have 2 years before the next election for Congress. Okay, so you have these 2 years, and you have a very tiny gap. It's not some wide majority in Congress. It's like just 3 or 2 people. So you better be careful, Republicans. Get together, be on one accord, and get the job done. Secure the border, reduce inflation. Okay. Make sure prosperity comes back to the United States. Bring back jobs. Okay, because the jobs has been going down for sure. Bring down crime, okay? And everything you promised, OG Trump, everything you promised, 10% cap on interest rate on credit cards, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, all of this stuff, you will be held accountable. Trump is going to be held accountable for everything he said during the campaign trails. Because, look, this man prides himself. This is something I admire about Trump. Trump prides himself in being a man of his words. Okay, he said he was going to secure the border. He better secure the border, and I'm like almost sure he's going to do it. He said he was going to stop the war between Ukraine and Russia, the Palestinian people, Israel, Iranian people. As soon as he becomes the president of the United States on January 20, a lot of people are already like going to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring anyway, and I know for a fact he is going to get his promises done, because he always says promises made, promises kept. So, OG, let's get it, man.
President Biden has emphasized that the FBI's claim that the New Orleans terrorist was working alone. Listen.
Today, the FBI briefed me that as of now, we have no information that anyone else is involved in the attack. They've established that the attacker was the same person who planted the explosives in those ice coolers in 2 nearby locations in the French Quarter. We're also continuing to investigate whether or not there's any connection between the New Orleans attack and the explosion in Las Vegas. As of now, they've just been briefed. They have not found any evidence of such a connection thus far. I've directed them to keep looking.
Keep looking. Kyron Skinner joins me now. And Kyron, incoming Borders Tom Homan disagrees. He's convinced there is a connection between the two events. What say you? Is it a coincidence or is there a connection? What do you think?
I think there's irresponsibility in having the president in the Oval Office basically state that there's no connection this quickly, because if you go several layers deep, whether they coordinated or not, these two individuals who invoked terror on Americans, there's a problem about radicalization born of ISIS that we need to talk about, and the president isn't going deeper into what's happened here. This takes us back to his statements early on following the October 7th attack. The administration's view, the Biden administration's public statement was that there was no Iranian involvement in Hamas invading Israel and slaughtering people. Well, we now know that Iran has its fingertips and its hand on the gear with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. They don't move without Iran. So this worldview that the administration has taken leads the American public in the wrong direction in terms of the facts. So I agree with our emerging border czar, but I'm really concerned about the administration's understanding or lack thereof of the ongoing war on terror. They pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021 and weren't prepared for the chaos that ensued and the loss of life, 13 American servicemen. Not understanding that the global war on terror wasn't over, this wasn't going to bring an end to it, and that the Taliban was ready to take over again. If they couldn't understand Afghanistan and the fallout there, it's difficult for me to accept that they have full command of what just happened in New Orleans and Las Vegas. This is a broader story that they need to talk with us about.
Yes. And you mentioned Afghanistan, Kyron. According to the Washington Post, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan reportedly offered to resign after that botched withdrawal. Do you think he should have resigned?
I don't. I have a lot of sympathy for Jake Sullivan. We held the same job at the State Department as policy planning director. He's a brilliant thinker. He's one that's been interested in big ideas, but I understand the sentiment of offering his resignation because this was an example of being devoid of ideas. He took the position that we can't be in the war forever, so we have to leave. But I think this false binary opposite, or leave or be there forever, was wrong thinking. And I don't believe that the administration has learned a lot since then. And that's why you have President Biden declaring there's no connection between the two incidents in different states, and not emphasizing the problem of radical Islam, of ISIS continuing to radicalize people, and the propaganda that they put forth all over the world. Where's that?
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. With that being said, I just want to show you what's going on, or what has been going on at the border. Okay. Real life situation, y'all. Like, real life situation. I don't know why people still don't get it. I don't know why people don't get it, but I'm going to show you, because you are my people, okay? My people going to know what time it is. All right, my people going to know what time it is. Check this out. First of all, the Biden administration started selling off the border wall materials. Okay. And that ain't even gonna work. Look at this. It says here 94 executive orders to open the border, but it was sold off for just $5 a piece. Razor wire fences, forcible, removed. AZ's shipping crate. Well, look. This is what y'all are dealing with right now, bro. Too sad. Too sad. Just absolutely sad. You can never make this up. You can never make this up, yo.
A military appeals court ruling Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin cannot rescind the plea deals of three suspects responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Those plea deals would have them plead guilty in exchange for being spared the possibility of the death penalty. Here to discuss is president of 9/11 Justice, whose father died on 9/11, Brett Eagleson. Brett, thank you for joining us. Just real quick, so your father, Bruce, was killed in the trade centers on 9/11 when you were 15, as I recall?
That's right. Yeah, thank you for having me this morning.
It's good to see you. Now, on this story, it's kind of amazing. I would argue that the only reason that Secretary Austin decided to rescind this plea deal in the first place was because the administration got caught out on it, and you and others exposed them, and then they kind of ran around trying to undo it. Is that a fair assessment?
That's right. It was a politically motivated decision to rescind it. Yeah. We think that they knew all along that there was no way to do it, but in the heat of the election, in the lead up to November, they were utterly called out on the carpet for a horrific decision. Look, I haven't heard from a single 9/11 family member that thinks this is a good idea. And the reality here is that everything about 9/11, everything about this 23 national nightmare, this 23-year national nightmare that we've had to contend with has been a horrific travesty. From the days after 9/11, when the U.S. government worked with Saudi Arabia to cover up the Saudi Arabian role, to the time we sent 5,000 or 6,000 of our troops to be slaughtered in Iraq for no reason, to the very fact that Congress just denied the benefits for the first responders, to now this, to where we're getting these terrorist sweetheart cupcake deals. We've been kicked in the gut time and time again, and we're sick of it. And we are so hopeful that we finally have a president who's going to do the right thing here. And one thing I want to point out is that on 9/11 this year, when VP Harris and Biden sat behind the red rope at the 9/11 World Trade Center memorial, President Trump was in a 9/11 firehouse. He was in a New York City firehouse. He was there with me, and I got a chance to talk to him. And we said to him, Mr. President, you were right in 2016 when you said it was Saudi Arabia that knocked down those towers. He said it on this very show on Fox and Friends. We said, Mr. President, we had to get the information not from the U.S. government about Saudi Arabia's role. We had to get it from the British government. We said, Mr. President, the same people who tried to take you down in Russia, Bob Mueller and the deep state of this country are the same people who have blocked justice for us. They're the same people that came up with these horrible plea deals. Would you do something to help us? And he committed to us that day in a New York City firehouse on 9/11 that if he were elected president, he was going to do the right thing. He said he could deal with Saudi Arabia and he was going to bring us final justice and closure. And we're going to hold him to account on that. And we're very hopeful. This is a new start for America. We have a Republican-controlled Congress. We have a president
This is the thing. Trump has made so many promises to a lot of organizations, to a lot of people, to the United States, to the citizens, each and everybody in the United States. Everybody's holding. This is why I admire Trump, because everybody that actually voted for Trump expect something in return. Okay? This is a leader that people voted for and actually expect something in return. They're not voting for him based on, oh, I'm a MAGA voter. Oh, I'm just MAGA. I'm just a Trump voter. No, they're actually voting for him because they expect something from him. This is the only way, in my opinion, any citizen should vote for a political leader. Expect something in return. Okay? I voted for Trump because I expect something in return. You said you're going to bring down inflation. Get to work. You said you're going to secure the border. Get to goddamn work. Okay? This is why a lot of Americans who voted for Trump are actually sensible people, because the Democrats always say that the people who are voting for Trump are not educated people. They just say they're MAGA. They're MAGA. No. And MAGA means make America great again. I mean, what is bad about make America great again? Can you just tell me what is bad about being a person who wants to make America great again? What? Everybody that you see that hasn't that would take an interview about talking about Trump and why they voted for Trump, they would tell you because he promised to do this, because he promised to do that. This is why I voted for him. It's not, oh, I'm a loyal Republican, so I'm voting for Republican. Nah. It's based off of policies. Everybody who voted for Trump is just solely based off of policies.
President in the office who puts America first. So let's hope that he really truly does that.
Well, I think you just gave one of the best encapsulations of the mistakes our government has made since 9/11. And I'm grateful to you for that. And I'm also grateful to you for staying strong and keeping on the government and exposing all of this. So thank you, Brett Eagleson.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is, y'all.
Yeah, New York City's 8-year nightmare finally comes to an end and just...
Of course, this guy, Eric Adam, this guy right here, he's playing politics. Well, Trump already said he was going to consider giving him a pardon anyway. So now he's definitely going to work with Tom Homan, but he already wanted to work with Tom Homan anyway.
3 days. That is certainly something to celebrate. Look, I'm hopeful that Eric Adams is going to really address these issues. He has said he's going to reevaluate the vaccine mandate policy. And as you've said, NYPD officers are now short-staffed. We see FDNY, EMS. Staten Island Ferry was running at reduced capacity because of staffing shortages, because those vaccinated staffers are even testing positive, which is why I say we need to focus on the treatments. But he should be hiring back all those workers that were fired for refusing the vaccine. That's number one. And secondly, he should be revisiting this policy. Speaking to the business groups, they're hopeful that at minimum he will.
We ain't gonna be talking about no goddamn. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we're not. We're not. No, we're not. Okay, so I just saw here somebody spoke about the tariff and explaining tariff. Who just sent me a text? Somebody just sent me a text. Okay, so explaining tariff. I promise not to do this to Greenland. Wait. I'm gonna play y'all one video. This video way too funny, y'all. This this is for the Democrats in the chat arguing back and forth. This is for the Democrats in the chat, y'all. Oh God. How does this feel, Democrats? How does this feel watching that? Okay. There you have it. The little time she had to shine is over. Bye. Now paint that wall back. They were trying to they were trying they were trying to make her someone that's fighting for freedom. No, she ain't fighting for no freedom. Nah. Now paint back the wall, put it back to its original color. Okay. Paint back the wall and put it back to where it's supposed to be. All right. So let me find that picture for you guys. I want to get that picture for Tariff. And also, before that, let me play you this video because a lot of people don't know. But this is what North Carolina looks like right now. North Carolina after the Hurricane Helene. Situation. This is what North Carolina looks like. Because somebody just joined the Discord talking about show us shows the history of income tax and difference between being in a war. I think that's our battle. Shows the history of income taxes and the difference between being in war and not in the war. My man. All right. We're gonna talk about that. Anyway, this is North Carolina right now, y'all. This is North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, and yet billions are being sent overseas. Take a look at that. This is America, y'all. Looking like Afghanistan. Look at that. Let me get this. I'm trying to get this other picture for you guys. Give me a moment. Yeah, that's not allowed. That isn't allowed. Okay? They have to do better. Things has to get better. There's no way that North Carolina should be looking like that. And then you want to send money abroad. It's absolutely impossible. Nah, y'all. Nah. That's North Carolina. That's North Carolina after the Hurricane Helene.
Okay, so let's bring in former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. You know, there are big picture here. There are like leadership problems all over the place. Obviously, the city of New Orleans and its police department has some things to contend with. But I'd like to talk specifically about the FBI and moving forward, especially with the new administration, because there is a lack of confidence in the way that the FBI conducts itself right now. What do you think needs to happen in order for Americans to feel safe with trusting the FBI again?
Right. So first of all, ASAC Alethea Duncan, I can tell you that countless current and former FBI agents have reached out to me, and I myself, along with them, are embarrassed and ashamed by her statement, her lack of competence in a very key moment. And this is why the FBI is not trusted, because they put out information like this. But going forward, I do agree that the FBI, their trust has been destroyed over the last several years. They do not have a good track record. The key is to put in solid leadership, get them in there, and to hold those accountable that have destroyed the trust of the American people. And there need to be tangible consequences for those that have been key in really betraying Americans' trust.
Hi, Nicole. It's Sapphire. I have a question for you. So the terrorist who ran his car through downtown Bourbon Street and killed and injured all of these people, the FBI said that he wasn't necessarily on their watch list, but obviously he became radicalized somewhere. Will they be doing a deep dive into his internet searches? And what kind of, how can we surveil people to know if they are having access to these? Because we need to be knowing if people are being radicalized here on our soil.
Absolutely, Nicole. Very, very important to note. And again, going back to FBI's priorities, if you are saying that white supremacy is the #1 threat facing America, and in the meantime, we've got individuals conducting, ISIS terrorist attacks, it goes back to the FBI. The FBI needs to refocus on the proper priorities that Americans care about most. And individuals like this, yes, they can be very difficult to surveil. If you see something, say something. If you know something about someone, their behavior seems to be off. But yes, they will be doing a very deep dive. They will be going into all of the electronic devices, his digital footprint, interviewing friends, family, loved ones, colleagues, and really determining what the pathway to the radicalization and pathway to violence was.
Nicole, it's Joe Conchit. Does the FBI have a recruitment problem now at this point? Because to your point earlier, trust in the FBI, according to polls that we're seeing, for instance, one CNN poll, has them at 41% approval. Let's put that in context. Just 10 years ago in 2014, they were at 60% approval. That is a precipitous drop. So what can the FBI do to recruit better people? Because it clearly right now it seems to be a personnel problem in terms of quality of FBI agents that we're seeing. To your point, they said it wasn't an FBI. They said it wasn't a terror attack when this first happened hours afterwards without an investigation truly being conducted in the proper way before they walked that back. So how do we fix this?
Solid question there. Those that are doing the real work on the ground are sick and tired of being scrutinized by the failures of those who really should have never been in a leadership role. The key is to raise the hiring standards again. They drop them, in my opinion. Raise the hiring standards, raise the promotion standards, and admit to America, look, we've had some failures, but we have new leadership in place, and we are going to make the FBI great again. It is so important to regain the trust of the American people, but even more importantly, Joe, to regain the trust of the FBI agents. I walked away because the FBI changed. It changed so drastically. I no longer recognize the agency I'd signed on for. They need to get back to the original mission, uphold the Constitution, protect the American people, stop going after your political opponents. And this DEI, it is dangerous and detrimental to the mission of the FBI. Americans, we have threat levels at an all-time high. We cannot afford to be focusing on anything other than protecting the American people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole Parker, as always.
Now, that's what competence sounds like. Okay, straight to the point. Loving America, putting America first. I mean, easy. Easy. I don't know why it's hard. Because she's saying it wasn't a terrorist event. That was just bad for business, man.
Joining me now is Israeli Special Ops veteran Aaron Cohen. Aaron, great to have you here. I guess my question to you is, how can we better identify homegrown terrorists and ISIS cells in the United States?
Ashley, that's a great question. Here's how we look at it in the counterterrorism world. First, we have to identify why we're focusing on the investigation and not focusing on why we couldn't stop this attack. And let me tell you where it starts. The FBI has a rotten DEI infestation, which they've prioritized over the last 4 years, $100 million spent on prioritizing DEI, which is distracting from their core mission, which is stopping terrorists. That's number one. Major intelligence gaps and lack of proactive measures have allowed these radicalized idiots to kill over 15 people in New Orleans on Bourbon Street and slip through the cracks. So here's where I'm at with both cases, which exhibited warning signs and online warning signs that were missed and they were never acted upon. So here's what we need, Ashley. We need a dedicated domestic counterterrorism law enforcement agency. The FBI has lost its way, and we don't have time to fix it. We need to build it from the ground up because it's so rotten at the core. I'm not saying all FBI agents are bad. Here's how we do it. The agency focuses purely on detecting, disrupting, and preventing domestic terrorism threats using advanced behavioral analysis, tracks radicalization through that AI, and tracks all those patterns in real time across social media, encrypted platforms, and financial transactions. And that's how we do it in Israel, and that's how we prevented over 1,000 terror attacks in the last year. We can't get to all of them, but we need to look at this thing from the ground up and completely rebuild it because it's so broken, Ashley, that it's not fixable. So that's where I'm at. And I hope Donald Trump in 17, 18 days, hope he's listening to me right now because it's time to rebuild this thing. And that's how you stop the next attack.
I got literally 30 seconds, Aaron. How do you do all of that? Root out these radicals because we have such an open society. It's not that easy.
We got to get it through Congress. You got to build it up to 15,000 agents, this new counterterrorism agency. You got to pass it through. And you got to put in leadership, Ashley, that aren't these bureaucratic idiots, these lawyers who've run the federal agencies into the ground, these idiots. You got to put in counterterror experts, intelligence veterans, the guys who've worn the badge and the gun, who come from the counterterror world, and then put in that strategic intelligence division and start going to work and build it up to 14, 15,000 agents large. And it's time to go to work, and it's going to take 4 years, but we'll get good at it.
Aaron Cohen bringing up.
Okay, so I just saw somebody spoke about the tariffs Trump is proposing. All right, I just want to show you a little information here about tariff. So this is, I hope you guys can see this clearly, okay? Somebody said, let me go read that chat. Somebody said, let me see, what did the person say? Person said, Trump is proposing a 60% tariff. So a lot of people don't know the background, the history of tariffs, okay? So tariff used to be one of the major ways United States made money. Tariff is actually revenue for the United States. A lot of people don't know that. They just think it's like, oh, it's bad for the consumers because, you know, when you lay tariffs on products coming into the United States, then it's gonna, you know, go back to the consumer, and the consumers would have to pay more. But this right here was prior to income taxes. Okay. Of course, I know our bad spoke about before we started getting involved in different types of war, income taxes wasn't this high. However, prior to income tax at all, the United States was making money by laying tariffs on all of these countries. Tariff was one of the highest way the United States made money. Matter of fact, United States was living life just based off of tariffs. Talking about the 1800s. So as you can see right here, it says this is really a remarkable chart of tariffs as percentage of total federal revenue. The second industrial revolution, perhaps the most fertile era for technology development and deployment in human history. It was 1870 to 1914. So from 1870 to 1914, look at the amount the United States got in through tariffs, and look at the late 90s and 2000s. Late 90s and 2000s. Look at it. So when people say, well, tariff is bad, tariff is very bad for the country, well, you have to do some digging and you have to do some reading. Go back and check how the United States made money. Like, this is what Trump means by I want to make America great again, meaning he has to tariff the hell out of everybody else. I'm telling y'all, man, this is it. This is how you make America great again. All right. If you want to stop paying taxes, you need tariffs. Tariff has been working for years when there was no taxes. There was no taxes, y'all. Now you guys are complaining about taxes. Oh, income taxes, corporate taxes, capital gains, this, that, this, that. You wouldn't even need to pay taxes if you have this income. Just take a look at this. If you all the income you had coming from tariffs. But a lot of people don't know this history. All they know is tariff is bad because they just, because the media says tariff is going to, bring the product into the United States and make sure the consumer pays high pricing. So it's like, no, you got to do your own due diligence. It's like, no. The United States was very prosperous when they had um, tariffs on these countries. But now you're trying to be what? Santa Claus? You know what I mean? You're trying to be Santa Claus. You can really get rid of income taxes. Do you know that you can really get rid of income taxes? The United States can actually get rid of income taxes. And don't forget, the Panama Canal was built in the early 1900s and commissioned in 1914. Feel me? So these were the times where prosperity was just like everywhere in the United States. Low pricing. And this is why when you talk to old folks, like people in their 80s, 90s, they'll tell you the good old days. The good old days. I'm telling you, man, the good old days. The good old days when tariffs was going on, low income taxes, if there was income tax in the first place.
You know what else you're going to have to buy for your kids? Perhaps a new map of the United States of America.
With the great state of Canada and the great state of Greenland.
Oh, that's right. So listen, this is what Donald Trump tweeted out or posted on X back on December 22nd. He said, for purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. Meanwhile, Greenland's prime minister, his name is Egegi. Is that how you say it? I don't know how to speak.
Mute Egegi.
Egegi?
Oh my goodness, I'm on mute. This is what I get trying to pander to these people talking about tariffs don't work long term. Yeah, I ain't explaining to you. You go do your research.
Ejed? I don't know.
I'm going to be the one person on the couch not to attempt.
All right, don't attempt.
Let's just call him the Prime Minister.
He's
the Prime Minister said this.
And this is what he said. The Greenlandic people's opportunity for independence has been adopted through the provisions of the Self-Government Act, thereby creating a legal basis for how independence can be achieved. A draft constitution for our country has also been prepared. Work has already begun with regard to creating the framework for Greenland as an independent state within the possibilities and provisions of Self-Government Act. So Donald Trump sends out this tweet. At the same time, Greenland has been talking about independence from Denmark. And one of the things that they've done to sort of push this forward is to put in airports so that you can come directly to Greenland without having to pass through Denmark. So they've done that part. But he's also, this prime minister said, sorry, we don't want to be part of it.
Now, man, I'm telling y'all, man, the OG Trump is just, this man is considered to me one of the greatest deal maker in history. He just said, Greenland, you're going to have to join us. And guess what Greenland is doing right now? Greenland said they want to be taken out of Denmark. Why do you think Greenland wants to be taken out of Denmark? Because they want to be with the United States. Yeah, they're just going to join Alaska real fast. Real quick. People think Trump is, people like Joe Biden. Trump is a different breed. This man was born in Queens in the 40s. Okay? Everybody knows New York is not for children. If you're a developer in New York, you're not going to be soft. Okay? This man was known, still known as a legend in New York as a developer. You think he's soft? When people argue, just like the lady, the president of Mexico, she was arguing, well, you're not going to tell us what to do about the border. Now she's saying she's open. You can never make this up. The president of Mexico, that was, I'm not going to take it. Look, we're not going to close the border. We're going to. Now she's saying she's open to taking even people that are not from Mexico into Mexico. Justin Trudeau flew to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Or Trudeau, whatever his name is. Everybody likes to act tough. Just like the president of Panama right now talking about Panama Canal is Panama's property. Just watch. He's going to kiss the ring real fast. Everybody kisses the ring fast. They just act like they're not going to kiss the ring. You can't argue with people like Trump, bro, because you don't have the leverage he has. You don't want smoke with Trump. You think this is Joe Biden? This ain't Joe Biden, y'all. This ain't Kamala Harris. You know when Joe Biden says don't? When Trump says don't, just try. Try. And you're going to 5-4. F around and find out.
United States. So what do you think is going to happen here? And what is really behind all this with Donald Trump?
But the important point there is that even they are not satisfied with being governed by Denmark, which is kind of an important thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do we want Greenland, guys?
Well, so I'm not really sure, and this is a great question for your next interview with Trump. I'm not sure it's necessarily about U.S. sovereignty over Greenland, but I think U.S. influence in the Arctic is extremely important. This is strategy. This is major high-level geopolitical strategy. You look at what our enemies are up to. You look at the Chinese. You look at the Russians together, that alliance or axis of the Chinese and the Russians. They are really aggressive in the Arctic. And the free world has to wake up and pay a lot of attention to that. And I think that's what Trump is getting at here, saying, hey, we would like to have more influence on this landmass up there.
And who do you think can defend Greenland from Russia or China, more importantly, better? The Danes or America?
And if the Danes want to make the case for themselves, then they can actually put their money where their mouth is, right? And if we can encourage people in the West to step up on defense and that military spending and that sort of thing, all the better to help share the weight, share the burden.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's similar to what he was doing in the Panama Canal.
100%.
Saying, hey, you got to choose between whether your ally is China or the United States. And so he's making some very interesting moves ahead.
Easy. This is easy. How is this hard? How is this hard for anybody to understand or to comprehend? This man just told Panama that we gave you Panama Canal for $1, courtesy of President or former President, may so rest in peace now, Jimmy Carter. Okay, he gave you the Panama Canal for $1 with terms and conditions. Okay, meaning you cannot be doing business with the enemies. Everybody knows China is not the United States friend. Is that hard? If you say you are an American and then you don't put America first, any citizen in here in the chat talking about United States has to apologize to Panama. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Somebody comes to your home or you give somebody a gift and then they go gift your enemy the gift you gave them. What is that? Yeah, I'm going to take my gift back. F all that. Look at this one. This one says, apologize for threatening to take over what's not theirs. Okay. Let me give you the background, okay? The Panama Canal was first attempted to be built by the French men, okay? French lost a lot of people due to yellow fever and malaria, and they didn't have enough investment to actually build the Panama Canal in the 1800s. And guess what? The United States got in the 1900s and built the Panama Canal, completed the Panama Canal. And over 35 or 36,000 American men died building the Panama Canal. And some child is here in the comment section talking about they need to go apologize for threatening to take what is not theirs. Children.
His inauguration.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm All right, here we go. Fox News alert. The FBI is changing their assessment after saying they believe there could be additional suspects in the New Orleans terror attack.
Let me be very clear about this point. This was an act of terrorism. We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsa Din Jabbar, the subject you've already been briefed on.
Served in the military for a period of time. Here to discuss all this is retired four-star General Jack Keane. But before we get to Jack Keane, I want to just go over.
So somebody just said here that it was the South Americans and the Caribbeans that mainly built the Panama Canal. So it's not the United States. Right. This is the thing. Even Americans would not support America. I don't know what else to say. I'm tired because I love the United States so much that I go study, I do my due diligence, and then I bring you information. And now, even Americans are going to say, it's not America. When I say America is the greatest nation in the world, Americans are in the chat telling me America is not the greatest nation. Have you traveled? Americans, bro. I'm telling Americans that was born here. I'm a naturalized citizen, okay? And I'm telling the American-born citizens that America is the greatest nation in the world. And they'll tell me, have you traveled? Can't make this up, y'all. Don't even love your country. Golly.
some of the history and some of the organizations to reframe your mind. We used to talk about this every day. I mean, let's go back to Hamas. In the 1980s, they emerged right in the Gaza West Bank area. Their goal as a Sunni extremist organization to oust all Western culture, especially Israel, from what they consider Palestine, which it's not. They still exist today. They are financed and loosely affiliated with Iran, but they're Shia Iran. Brings us to Al-Qaeda, emerged really during the Soviet Union occupation of Afghanistan, led by Osama bin Laden famously. They were really kicked out of Saudi Arabia where it started. They took root over in Pakistan, Afghanistan region. They also had a presence in Sudan. The relevance today, their branches are still operating in and around there and gave birth to some derivatives who they often brawl with. One of those derivatives is ISIS, famously called by four-star General Austin at the time, and who was told President Biden at the time, don't worry about it. They're really not a big deal. They're like the JV team. They're not the JV team. They can be, they are famed for being able to inspire people without training them in person. And of course, this latest attack in New Orleans, this suspect, who is now dead, was inspired by ISIS. So let's talk to General Jack Keane about all this, the chairman for the Institute of Study of War. So, General, as we're going to weave in some of the incidents that have happened over the last year of terror attacks around the world, how do we stop this? Is there something we could do in the Middle East to stop what's happening in the West?
Well, certainly at the foundation of all of this is an ideology that perpetuates it. And they have a big idea, and it's difficult to defeat an idea like that, given the roots that exist in some of these countries to help fester and grow that idea. But all three of those terrorist organizations are mere shadows of the former self, Brian. Let's face it, Hamas is decimated. Al-Qaeda has never actually recovered, from taking down Osama bin Laden and his entire network. They still exist. They're still a threat, but they're not on the stage that they used to be as major global threat. ISIS had a caliphate, and that was destroyed. The Trump administration dismantled it in Iraq and Syria. Now, the fact is that there are hotspots around the world. There's still radical Islamist organizations in 40 countries. And the hotspots, fortunately, are not in the United States. These are organizations that exist. They have networks. They do planned and premeditated attacks, and they're taking place in Africa, in Mali, in Kenya, in Niger, in Somalia, in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, and obviously in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where there is a rise of ISIS and their desire to conduct attacks outside of Afghanistan. We've already seen it in Iran and in Europe, and certainly the United States is trying to keep its eye on that. But as you pointed out earlier in the show, we don't have our eyes and ears. We closed our multiple CIA bases, and we certainly have no one on the ground to keep an eye on that threat. But nonetheless, the United States is not one of the hotspots where radical Islam extremism is on the rise. It is in some other places in the world, and we have to maintain our vigilance. I'm not saying we ease up on anything. We've got good intelligence. We have good counterterrorism organizations that we've put together after 9/11, where we're coordinating these activities and watching them. But here, we don't have networks that we're dealing against. We don't have an organization that we're dealing against. We're dealing with a lone wolf who's very hard to penetrate, that person, an individual on the internet that's getting more and more radicalized and then makes a decision to jihad and use violence against his own people. That's very difficult to discern that and prevent it, obviously. Obviously. So when President Trump takes over on January 20th, he's got a situation in the Middle East simmering, a lot of people waiting for him. Maybe Netanyahu is. There's a report today in Axios that Joe Biden discussed plans to strike Iran's nuclear sites if Tehran was speeding towards a bomb. I heard they are speeding towards a bomb. Do you look at that? Do your sources say the same thing? Well, here's the issue. I mean, the Iranians have a decision to make. And look at what happened to them. Hamas and Hezbollah decimated. Hezbollah was the organization that they created to protect Iran from Israel. And that organization also has got major problems. They've lost their strategic platform in Syria. They are defenseless at home because Israel stripped away their air defense system. They can't even protect their leaders in Tehran, to be frank about it, much less their nuclear systems and their rockets and missiles. So what's their choice? What they want to do more than anything else is preserve their regime. They've always thought a nuclear weapon would do that. They believe Saddam Hussein would still be in power today, and so would Gaddafi, if they had pursued a nuclear weapon successfully. Are they now going to pursue that and get there in a matter of months? That remains to be seen. I think our intelligence agencies are watching it like a hawk. I know where Prime Minister Netanyahu is. He wants to eliminate this threat. He sees this as a strategic opportunity. They're defenseless. They're not going to be able to retaliate very much because they've taken down a lot of their rockets and missiles, and they can do more of that with a strike that goes after their nuclear system. I know he's talking to President Trump and their advisors here, and likely they're working through options, hopefully together, to deal with this threat. I think it's a strategic opportunity, and you could force Iran to dismantle the system by a date certain, bring inspectors in to verify, U.S. regional inspectors, UN inspectors, or go after it kinetically and take it down once and for all. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to eliminate this threat once and for all. He knows Iran is on its heels, and now is the time to take this thing off the board, frankly.
You know, General, the other thing would be Netanyahu is not going to ask for much. Just let him do it instead of getting in his way or tipping off the Iranians. That was how bad the relationship seemed to be between the Biden administration and Netanyahu. He's going to have a much better relationship with this administration. It's going to be quite interesting because this is historic.
This whole situation with Iran, Israel, Palestinian people, is like, it's tiring. It should be over with by now. Everybody's exhausted by it. Okay, everybody's just exhausted by it. Same with Ukraine and Russia. All of this should be done for. Nobody cares about all of this stuff no more, man. They're just killing people unnecessarily at this point. And then you want ammunitions, you want billions of dollars to continue the war. I mean, Jesus. Man.
Let's take a live look at New Orleans. That is where the FBI about to give an update on the New Year's Day attack that occurred on Bourbon Street that killed.
So this New Orleans situation, they just got a new update saying that the perpetrator, the guy who actually did the do, this guy had a Meta Ray-Ban glasses to record the New Orleans environment, where the Bourbon Street, before he actually go do the drive-by. So he had the Ray-Ban Facebook glasses record the street before he committed his crime. Isn't that crazy what technology can do? Just think about the fact that you can record where you're going to commit a crime through your glasses, and nobody's paying attention to you. If you had a camera, then it's like, oh, you're recording. But now you have just a glasses on, bro. Everybody just thinks you have sunglasses on, and then you're recording as well.
So many people and injured so many others, striking at the very heart of New Orleans that we so love. Let's listen to the FBI press conference right now.
The last few days have been both tragic and emotional. Families have been affected in ways that will continue to haunt them now and into the future. And I believe only the power of prayer and the faith in God can pull them and us through this time. You know, everyday Americans and one foreign citizens' lives have been shattered and lost. Everyday Americans like Kareem Badawi, 18 years old from Baton Rouge, who was a freshman at Alabama, majoring in mechanical engineering, played football at Episcopal School last year, and whose friend Travis said it was never about Kareem, it was always about others, and that's what made him unique. like Tiger Besh, 27, from Lafayette, who played football at Princeton, worked for Seaport Global in the capital markets. And I quote his brother Jack, who said, "I can't wait to show you the big things I will do in this world, to tell my kids about you and the man you shaped me to be." And his mom, Virginia, who says that evil will not prevail. Like Drew Dolphin, 28, from Montgomery, Alabama, a graduate of Auburn University in 2023, was with his younger brother Matthew during the attack, whose family has described him as having lit up every room he entered and how his smile was infectious.
Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, sir. So this is an update by the FBI on the NOLA attack investigation, New Orleans. And it's sad to see 15 or 16 people dead and about 30 people in the hospital, including law enforcement officers. It is too sad. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Also, we have memberships on this channel. So if you want to join the memberships on this channel, it is $4.99. And yeah, man, let's go. Let's get it.
Like Nakira Dodo, 18, of Gulfport, Mississippi, who's going to begin nursing school this month, whose mom, Melissa, begged her not to go out on Bourbon Street that night, who has been quoted as one of the most amazing persons who loved everyone and a light to be around, said Zion Parsons, who was with her during the attack. Like Billy DeMaio, 25, from New Jersey, a star student and lacrosse player who worked for Audacity in New York as an account executive, whose family and friends have described them as having an unwavering work ethic and positive attitude and kindness. Like Hubbard Guthrow, 21, of Gretna, who graduated from Shaw High School in 2021, an incredible athlete with a passion for baseball since before he could walk, it was said. His family said he had a sense of humor that was infectious, and he brightened up the room that he walked into. Like Reggie Hunter, 37, of Prairieville, who leaves behind two sons, Landon, 11, and Christian, 18 months old, whose cousin Travis said to know Reggie was to love him, who always was in a good mood. Like Terrence Kennedy, who was one of 9 siblings, who has been said has always had a way of being comical and been loving and kind. And his sister Jacqueline said. Like Nicole Perez, 27, of Metairie, who was a mother of a 4-year-old, Malio, and is described by our Uncle Raul as loving and caring, a person very dedicated to her job and to her son. Like Ed Pettifer, of London, England, who worked as a director at an executive search firm, who had relations to the royal family. His family described him as a wonderful son, brother, grandson, nephew, and friend. You know, and it's tragically ironic that his father has, for over 20 years in the service of the British military, fought terrorism and terrorists on their soil, so we don't have to fight them on ours. I want to thank him for his service to the free world, and I'm deeply sorry, as all the other families, for their loss. Like Latasha Polk of New Orleans, a mother of a 14-year-old, a certified nursing assistant, whose family believes that Latasha would have wanted the city to turn out in celebration, but tinged with grief, but not in fear. Like Brandon Taylor, 43, who leaves behind a fiancée, Heather, who was with him during this nightmare, but who has described him as unique. Matthew Tenadero of Slidell, a fiber optics and video professional at the Superdome and the Smoothie King Center. His mom says we will miss everything about him, his beautiful face, his laugh, and how she loves him. And then finally, like Elliot Wilkerson, 40, of Slidell, who had 4 siblings, and whose brother said if you didn't have a shirt on your back, he would try to find one to put on you. No matter what, he was always looking to care for others. You know, each of these victims has family and friends who have to live with the tragedy and the nightmare of these events. Over the last 48 hours, we have all been focused on addressing the needs of each of these victims' families and to ensure that they are properly honored. We began on January the 2nd by ordering all the flags in the state at half-staff from sunrise to sunset. I have personally called into each of the victims' families to ensure that they are receiving the support and the answers to any questions that may have remained unanswered. I issued an executive order declaring a period of mourning for each of these victims on each of the following days under which flags of all the state buildings, schools, and universities will be at half-staff. I requested, and Dr. Kate Brumley, our superintendent of education, has called for a moment of silence in all of our public schools beginning on Monday at 9 a.m. So on Monday, January 6th, will be in remembrance of Kareem Badawi. On Tuesday, January 7th, will be in remembrance of Tiger Besh. On Wednesday, January 8th, will be in remembrance of Drew Dauphin. On Thursday, January 9th, in remembrance of Nakara Dado. On Friday, January 10th, in remembrance of Billy DeMaio. Then again on Monday, January 13th, Hubert Gothrow. On January 14th, Reggie Hunter. On January 15th, Nicole Perez. On January 16th, Terry Kennedy. On January 17th, Matthew Tenadaro. Then again, starting the following week, on Monday, January 20th, Edward Pettifer. January 21st, Latasha Polk. January 22nd, Brandon Taylor. And then hopefully concluding on January 23rd in remembrance of Elliot Wilkerson. We have been working side by side with the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office Crime Reparations Unit, the New Orleans Police Department's Victim Witness Unit, the FBI's Special Victims Unit, the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office Victims and Witness Unit, to ensure that these victims get the answers and the support that they need. I also called on a time of prayer from Thursday and culminating today, specifically asking pastors and clergy and parishioners here in Louisiana and across the nation to unite in the prayer of victims and their families. We have been specifically tasked in assisting families with expediting the transportation of the deceased family members home. Each citizen of Louisiana's body was offered a Louisiana State Police escort to the funeral home of their parish. Each of our out-of-state victims was either escorted to the state line or to the airport. We are working again with the Crime Victims Reparation Board to ensure that the support they are entitled to is expedited. And the FBI will discuss more details of what they're doing in coordination to assist us with these victims. And I'll tell you what I've told each one of those families. I don't think there's a person up here that wouldn't love to return them to their families. And so we will continue to ensure that their tragic loss is not forgotten. And while we can do nothing to undo what has happened, we are committed to doing everything within our power to honor these victims and support their families and friends. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today with the FBI and our partners. Today, in the interest of transparency, we're going to give you the latest update on the FBI's investigation into the Bourbon Street attack on New Year's Day. First and foremost, as the governor has already done, I know I speak for the FBI and all of the first responders involved in this when I say we do this for the victims and their families, even though we know that nothing we do will take away their pain and grief. What we can and are doing is investigating every detail of this attack to find answers. We are leaving no stone unturned. Before I turn it over to FBI New Orleans SAC Lionel Murthel, I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall global and national counterterrorism threat, as I think it's important to understand those threats as it relates to what went on New Year's Day here in New Orleans.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. So for people just tuning in right now, this right here is the FBI giving a detailed information to the public about the terrorist attack that happened in New Orleans. The reason why it's categorized a terrorist attack is because the trucker, who happens to be a former military vet, or well, now he's passed away, and he had the ISIS flag in his truck. Okay, in his F-150, he had an ISIS flag in his F-150. He rammed into a crowd of people and killed about 16 people and injured about 30 people. And it's a sad day for New Orleans. So that's the update we're watching right now by the FBI. But also, the new update is he actually went to Bourbon Street a day before he did that, chaotic activity. He filmed the Bourbon Street with a Meta Facebook recording glasses. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Facebook glasses. Mark Zuckerberg kind of did a video on it while it was going, I think it was in Spain or somewhere in the United States, and he recorded himself walking on the street and saying this is a new technology where you can put on your glasses and actually vlog your everyday life. And yeah, that's what happened. This guy put on the Facebook Ray-Ban collaboration glasses where you can actually record with your glasses, and they filmed the Bourbon Street to figure out where he's going to place his IEDs, because they also found IEDs in his F-150 truck. So he had ISIS flag in his truck, and he also had IEDs in his truck. So it's a sad thing for, first of all, the United States military, because this guy was a veteran. He served at Fort Bragg and also was deployed to Afghanistan. And it's the same thing with the guy that exploded in the Tesla Cybertruck in front of Trump International in Las Vegas. He was also active duty military man, and he served at the same Fort Bragg that this guy in New Orleans served, and also was deployed to Afghanistan. So it's like, is there some sort of correlation? Is there some sort of similarities? But right now, FBI is saying that there are no similarities. But I mean, and also they got the same. They rented the car from the same car rental app called Turo. So the guy that got the F-150 rented the F-150 on Turo app, and the guy that got the Tesla Cybertruck rented the Cybertruck from Turo. So it's like, isn't there some sort of similarities? But they're saying there's no similarities, so I guess not. But yeah, it was a terrorist attack in New Orleans, if you're just tuning in. And he had ISIS flag in his truck and he had IEDs, but he got out of his car, he started shooting at law enforcement officers, and he was killed. But he was a United States veteran.
New Orleans. Make no mistake, protecting the American people from terrorism remains the FBI's #1 priority. The threats from international terrorism, domestic terrorism, and state-sponsored terrorism are complex and persistent. And notably, they are all simultaneously elevated. You might have heard the director speak numerous times about him seeing all the red lights flashing right now. We continually face threats from foreign terrorist organizations, violent extremists across the ideological spectrum, and criminal actors that aim to bring violence and harm to the United States. During these past few years, lone actors, or small cells of individuals who typically radicalize to violence online and who primarily use easily accessible weapons, have posed the greatest terrorism threat to our homeland. Additionally, for the past several years, the FBI has provided intelligence to our law enforcement partners highlighting that ISIS calls for vehicle ramming attacks. This is a tactic that has been used for many years to conduct deadly attacks on U.S. soil and in other countries. Lone actors, as you all I'm sure are aware, present a particular challenge to law enforcement.
So this is the information I really want you guys to listen to.
Has provided intelligence to our law enforcement partners highlighting that ISIS calls for vehicle ramming attacks. The greatest terrorism threat to our homeland. Additionally, for the past several years, the FBI has provided intelligence to our law enforcement partners highlighting that ISIS calls for vehicle ramming attacks. This is a tactic that has been used for many.
So listen to what he just said. This man definitely works with the FBI Deputy Assistant Director, Christopher. He just said that FBI has been giving out intelligence or had given out intelligence to the United States, I guess, government that there would be vehicle ramming into crowds. This is a way that this terrorist organization use to carry out their atrocities on United States soil. So if you know that crowded areas are a target for supposed or alleged terrorist group, why wouldn't you take full precaution in New Orleans? And this is why I say most people are going to sue the city of New Orleans, and this is it's probably going to happen.
Many years to conduct deadly attacks on U.S. soil and in other countries. Lone actors, as you all I'm sure are aware, present a particular challenge to law enforcement intelligence because they are difficult to identify, investigate, and disrupt, especially when their radicalization and communication with other like-minded individuals happens online, as is believed to be the case with the New Orleans attacker, Shamsuddin Jabbar. Over the last year, we saw multiple plots in the U.S.
So somebody just said in the chat that the Tesla truck attack is a very strange thing. No, it's not. That wasn't even an attack because you cannot compare that to what happened in New Orleans. New Orleans guy intentionally drove into a crowded area to cause harm, attacking those people, killing those people, and injuring over like about 30 people and killing over 15 people. About 16 people, and the guy in the Tesla in Las Vegas that blew up, that was sort of kind of like a message societal situation, and just someone who was utterly depressed and really wanted to send a message as well. I mean, a Cybertruck in front of a Trump International Hotel, that's a message, okay? Elon Musk, Donald Trump. However, it's like, it wasn't crowded. He could have done it in a crowded place if he wanted to attack, but he didn't do it in a crowded place. So, you wouldn't call it the cybersecurity explosion an attack. It's like a suicide mission / the message / committing suicide.
That we were able to disrupt along with our state, local, and federal law enforcement partners. We simply cannot do it alone. Those include plots in September and October in Oklahoma City and New York City, respectively. The FBI continues to work tirelessly to combat the threat of terrorism, and that includes constantly working with and communicating with our state, local, and federal partners, whether that is sharing intelligence and information or day-to-day coordination of an investigation. And in New Orleans, that is exactly what the FBI and our partners have done since day one. As it relates to this investigation, all investigative details and evidence that we have now still support that Jabbar acted alone here in New Orleans. We have not seen any indications of an accomplice in the United States, but we are still looking into potential associates in the U.S. and outside of our borders. The case is still very early on. As is with the case with any complex terrorism investigation, as we uncover new leads, receive tips from the public, examine electronic devices, and interview witnesses, the information as we know it evolves into a clearer picture and provides more answers. We have a clearer picture today than we did even 2 days ago. We are much further along than we were previously. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the public for your help so far. You have provided tips that have greatly enhanced this investigation. I don't think the majority of you all in the public know just how critical your information has been for the FBI in high-profile investigations like this one. Your tips and information have been instrumental in the most significant terrorism investigations that have occurred in the last 20 years. So thank you on behalf of the FBI. The FBI continues to surge resources from across the country to assist the New Orleans field office. In addition to FBI special agents and personnel based here in New Orleans, more than 200 additional personnel have been brought in to assist in this investigation in order to process evidence, support victims, and investigate leads and tips. Personnel support includes, as I stated a few days ago, special agent victim specialists, evidence technicians, specially trained crisis management personnel, and intelligence analysts. Additionally, the entire counterterrorism division at headquarters, along with other headquarters divisions and the FBI's critical incident response group, including our hostage rescue team, continue to work around the clock supporting New Orleans and the other field offices involved in this investigation. We are not done investigating. In fact, our work has only begun. The FBI will continue to dig in and investigate to learn all that we can about this despicable attack on behalf of the victims and for their loved ones. Now, I'd like to turn it over to SAC Lionel Murthel, who's going to go into more specifics of the investigation. Lionel.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Lionel Murthel. I'm the special agent in charge of FBI New Orleans. I want to thank you and the hundreds of other FBI personnel and our partners with our local, state, and federal agencies who've been working tirelessly beside us. FBI New Orleans deeply mourns the loss of those who tragically lost their lives and extend our heartfelt prayers to those who were injured and offer our unwavering support to those who endured the traumatic experience of witnessing such a devastating act of terror. Today we want to focus on filling in some of the gaps and giving you a greater understanding of the planning that went into this horrible attack by Shamsud bin Jabbar. We are also sharing videos showing Jabbar placing the IEDs on Bourbon Street and videos he took as he plotted this hideous attack. Thanks to information provided by you, the public, this investigation is crossing state and international borders as our agents follow leads in Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, and internationally. FBI Houston has recovered evidence at his home there and the work now shifts to our specialists at the FBI laboratories. Interviews are being conducted with hundreds who have been identified as knowing key pieces of this complex, evolving case. We have also tracked that Jabbar traveled to Cairo, Egypt from June 22nd until July 3rd of 2023. A few days later, he flew to Ontario, Canada on July 10th and returned to the U.S. on July 13th on 2023. Our agents are getting answers as to where he went, who he met with, and how those trips may or may not tie into his actions here in our city in New Orleans. We've also discovered that Jabbar made at least 2 trips to New Orleans in the months prior to the attacks. One in October and the other a month later in November of 2024. From what we now know, Jabbar stayed at a rental home in New Orleans beginning October 30th, 2024. He was in town at least 2 days. During that time, Jabbar, using Meta glasses, recorded a video as he rode through the French Quarter on a bicycle. This video shows Jabbar during that trip in October with his Meta glasses. As we continue to learn more about that trip, we ask anyone who may have seen or interacted with him to contact.
Yo, think about this, man. This man was recording with his Meta glasses. This is next level stuff, yo.
This video shows Jabbar during that trip in October with his Meta glasses. As we continue to learn more about that trip, we ask anyone who may have seen or interacted with him to contact us. Now, for more information, Meta glasses appear to look like regular glasses, but they allow a user to record videos and photos hand-free. They also allow the user to potentially live stream through their video. Jabbar was wearing a pair of Meta glasses
I need
when
to
he
get me
conducted the
Meta
attack
glasses.
on Bourbon Street, but he did not activate
I
the
need to get
glasses to
myself
live stream his actions that day. Thanks to information that is coming in from the public, we now know Jabbar was here in New Orleans also on November 10th. But we are still piecing together the details of that trip. Moving closer to the day of the attacks, Jabbar is seen on December 31st at one of multiple gun stores he visited in Texas, leading up to the attack. As we go through the timeline, times we provide are approximate. Jabbar then stopped at a business in Texas where he purchased one of the ice chests he would later use to hide the IEDs. Jabbar is estimated to have entered Louisiana on December 31st, 2024 at approximately 2:30 p.m. He rented a vehicle that was seen again in Gonzales, Louisiana around 9 p.m. on December 31st. By 10 p.m., home camera footage shows Jabbar unloading the white pickup truck in New Orleans outside of the Mandeville Street rental home in the St. Roch neighborhood of New Orleans. Just under 3 hours later, at 12:41 a.m. on New Year's morning, Jabbar parked the truck and walked to Royal and Governor Nichols Street. Jabbar placed the first IED in the cooler at Bourbon and St. Peter Street at 1:53 a.m. Someone on Bourbon Street, who we have no reason to believe was involved, dragged the cooler a block to Bourbon and Orleans, where our teams found it after the attack. Jabbar placed the second IED in a bucket-type cooler at 2:20 a.m. on Bourbon and Toulouse Streets. In the videos, you see Jabbar wearing the long brown coat we showed you in a photo released earlier. That coat was recovered in the rented F-150. At 3:15 a.m., Jabbar used his pickup truck as a lethal weapon before crashing into the construction equipment and was stopped by the brave men and women of NOPD. Shortly after 5 a.m., a fire was reported at the rental home in the Mandeville Street location in New Orleans. And the New Orleans Fire Department found explosive devices on scene after entering the home. As we released yesterday, we strongly believe Jabbar was solely responsible for the fire on the Mandeville Street in New Orleans. We determined that he set the fire before heading to Bourbon Street, based on the ATF's investigation. I'd like to bring up Special Agent in charge of the ATF Field Division, Joshua Jackson, to address the details of their investigation and to explain the origin of the IEDs and the materials Jabbar used in them. SAG Jackson.
Thank you. Good morning. As stated, my name is Joshua Jackson. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the New Orleans Field Division, and I want to share with the media some updates regarding the origin and cause of the fire at the Mandeville Street address in New Orleans. We'll update you on information we developed with the firearms that were recovered from the scene, as well as discuss the explosives material that was recovered in Houston and here in New Orleans at the Mandeville Street address. And I'll kind of close out with some comments about our victim witness coordinators. As to the fire, it was determined by the investigators that Jabbar drove from Houston to New Orleans by himself. Throughout his entire time at that rental location in New Orleans, he was the only one seen coming and going from that location. He left that location at 12:15 a.m. the day of the attack, and that's when he set the fire. We know this because at 12:17, the Nest thermostat converted over from heat to cool. Through the whole time and during his stay, the weather had been cold, and the heat was running inside that residence. It changed roughly 2 minutes after he left because the thermostat indicated that the temperature was rising inside the residence, and it tried to keep up with the fire that was growing inside. Let me explain what happened with the fire. He used an open flame in the linen closet area next to the washer and dryer in a closed-off hallway centered into the residence. This hallway leads into different rooms of the house: bedrooms, the front room, the kitchen. Using this open flame in the linen area, this caused the fire to grow. He also set a half gallon of accelerant, gasoline, in a plastic gasoline container in that hallway. He also poured accelerant in different rooms throughout the house. We believe he did this, and his hope was to burn the entire house down and hide evidence of his crimes. As the fire grew in this closed-off area, it eventually ran out of oxygen and fuel, and it smothered itself before it spread to the accelerants that were placed in the other rooms. That's why the house did not burn down. At 5:18, neighbors smelled smoke in the air, and they're the ones who contacted 911, and that's when New Orleans Fire Department showed up at this residence and put out the smoldering fire that was there, and that's when they observed the materials inside the house and contacted FBI and ATF, and we secured that location. As far as the firearms that have been recovered in this investigation, it was a semi-automatic pistol that was used by Jabbar, and it's a semi-automatic rifle. The pistol was a 9mm, and the rifle was a .308 caliber. Conducting ATF urgent traces, we determined we didn't make contact with the individual who completed a private sale of the rifle on November 19th, 2024 in Arlington, Texas. This individual, based on our investigation, does not know Jabbar. This was a chance encounter in having this private sale transaction in Texas. There's no way this individual knew that Jabbar was radicalized or had any sort of awareness that this attack was imminent. I also want to preference that private sale transactions like this in Texas are illegal. Additional firearms that were recovered from the scene, and I'm going to call them privately made silencers, and I say that we're calling that because our Firearms Ammunition Technology Division, they still need to make a determination on these devices to ensure that they actually reduce the sound of a firearm to a degree that it can be technically classified as a silencer. But for the ease of public consumption, for you all to understand what was recovered, was a privately made silencer on the rifle that Jabbar was using in an attempt to muffle the sound of that rifle as he fired it. We also recovered a privately made silencer inside the Mandeville Street address, along with the explosives material. Now, there's been reports in the media about the explosive material that was recovered. That is something that is only found overseas. I want to provide more information. The explosive material recovered at the Mandeville Street address was field tested by a chemical identifier by bomb techs with ATF and FBI. This is a field test. Tested as R-salt. R-salt is very similar in look, texture, and chemical makeup as RDX, which is all readily common and available right here in the United States. These same field tests were done in Houston at Jabbar's residence, and that tested as true RDX. The FBI lab will conduct additional tests of this material, which we believe will turn out to be commonly found explosives right here in the United States. Now, what is different about this device that is somewhat unique, and it goes more to the inexperience of Jabbar. Our salt and RDX, typically you need a detonator to set it off. He did not have access to a detonator, so he used an electric match in its place to try to set off the explosive material. That is the only thing that's unique about the IEDs. IEDs themselves, how they were designed, functioned, something that our bomb techs with ATF and FBI have seen. It's not novel. What was different is he didn't use the correct device to set it off, and that is just indicative of his inexperience and lack of understanding how that material might be set off. Last comments are very important. I know that victims and family, that is the focus. That's why we're doing this job. That's why we're going, spending hours and surging resources. ATF has victim witness coordinators that are working hand in hand with all the victim resource specialists, and they're going to remain on the ground, engaged throughout.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. A lot of people are talking about they haven't heard about the car rental app Turo. Turo is pretty popular. I started using Turo in I think in 2020 or 2021. But I don't use Turo anyway because it's like you have to drive to the person's house to get the car, because it's individuals that are actually renting you their cars, just like Airbnb. People are renting you their rooms, their houses. That's how Turo is. So if you want exotic cars, because Enterprise, like a lot of people know, Enterprise is for the regular people who want to just, get from point A to point B, renting their cars to travel. But with Turo, if you wanted to get like a high-end car like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, you could literally get a Lamborghini or Ferrari on Turo for probably like $400 a day. So if you wanted to shoot a music video, you could get the car on Turo. So if you wanted to get a Cybertruck and you wanted to just drive it and see how it works, if you're gonna buy it for yourself or for your family member, you could just go on Turo and rent it for a day. So Turo is really a nice app, but I don't use Turo anymore though. But if I really wanted to get like an exotic car on a rental, I would use Turo. But if I just want to get a regular car like an SUV or like a normal sedan car, I'll go to Enterprise, because Enterprise, well, I'm kind of like a regular customer in Enterprise because I travel a lot. But anyway, Turo would have been like great if you guys want to like get exotic cars.
Services as we continue to engage and connect with the victims and the families. So our thoughts and prayers remain with them. Our focus and our energy remain with them in the city of New Orleans. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to SAC Myrtle.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click.
But it is what it is. You know what time it is. Thank you so much for tuning
Joining
in
us
to the
now
live
is
show.
Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. Senator, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Senator, the FBI, DHS, and National Counterterrorism Center warned of potential copycat attacks after what we saw in New Orleans. There are several large-scale events coming up, from the Super Bowl in New Orleans to Inauguration in D.C. Is enough being done to prevent something like this from happening again?
I can promise you everything is going to be done that they can imagine is going to be done. They don't want to look bad, first, and two, more importantly, they want to protect the American people. But we have to recognize wherever there's so-called soft targets, wherever there's a street festival in a big city, there's a potential for something bad to happen. So I would encourage the American people to be alert, to report things that look kind of like it shouldn't be that way, but to also live your life bravely. The thing that terrorists want to do is they want to terrorize us, which is to say, I'm too afraid to live in freedom. No, you got to be bold and live in freedom, and that's the best way we can counter terrorism.
Senator, the city of New Orleans spent $2.3 billion to harden infrastructure after the FBI warned in 2017 that the French Quarter was vulnerable to a mass casualty event. But the mayor said the steel bollards malfunctioned shortly after they were installed, and they were down for repairs ahead of the Super Bowl. They're being replaced. So when that attack happened, there were police vehicles acting as barricades. Listen.
It indeed have a plan, but the terrorist defeated it.
Well, the very next day, that police superintendent you just heard from admitted there were additional barriers on hand, but she didn't know they existed. 48 Archer barriers designed to stop a 5,500-pound truck going 60 miles an hour. The police superintendent didn't know what resources she had to protect the most vulnerable site in the city. Should she face consequences for that?
If everything as you laid out is as you said it, absolutely. There has to be leadership at the top. And if the leadership failed as you describe it, then absolutely there has to be consequences. Period. End of story. Now, I think we're going to have a kind of complete review of everything from top to bottom. And if that's the way it ends up shaking out completely, she should be replaced.
Yeah, police put out those Archer barriers the day after the attack to reopen Bourbon Street. Meridian Rapid Defense Group, the company that sold them to the city in 2017, said that they're the strongest mobile barriers in the world. But the CEO said, quote, not only did they not know they had them, they didn't even know how to describe them. And even now, in the pictures I've seen, the barriers aren't even set up properly because the wheels are still down. What's your reaction to hearing that?
Jesus. Obviously, we're preparing now for a Super Bowl, and there's going to be a Mardi Gras before then. Very quickly, the city needs to implement everything it needs to do in order to take it to the next level. Now, I will say that our governor, Jeff Landry, has had the state police going down, and there's also a multi-task, multi-parish, multi-regional task force, which is going to provide security. So I feel comfortable that when the Super Bowl comes, it'll be an incredibly secure environment. I went to the Sugar Bowl kind of as an act of defiance.
Should the state police take
over the
over the French Quarter?
And you could not believe. I'm sorry. No, I don't think you have to take it over, but I do think that you need to have a plan which is credible, reviewed by outside entities, and they say yes, this is good, and then you do everything you can to make sure that it's implemented correctly with a third party guaranteeing the implementation, and I think that's very doable.
President Biden will be visiting New Orleans tomorrow to meet with the victims' families. What are you asking for in terms of federal support?
Yeah, so first, my gosh, how can we not feel for both the families of those who died, but also those who've been injured and their families? And so in terms of federal support, I think, one, I've learned in medicine, as I'm a doctor, in medicine, when something bad happens, the family wants to know that it doesn't happen again, that the loss or the terrible thing that happened at least contributes to a greater good. The best thing that the city, the state, and the federal government can do is do their best best to make sure that this does not happen again. And what we can do as a people is to make sure that we don't live our lives in fear or in terror, but live our lives bravely and with liberty. And then support those families however they need support. By the way, I'm very proud of the medical teams in New Orleans. They're going to be providing first-rate care to all those victims. So we also have to take care of that, which is immediate and practical.
Sir, the terror attack in your home state has renewed focus on the need for swift Senate confirmations, but delays, we're hearing, might slow that down. Republican sources told The Hill, quote, "You got to get the ethics paperwork and the FBI background check done, and that's taken longer than it should have. They should know better. This has a lot to do with the way the transition team has set itself to operate." Is this potentially a self-inflicted problem for the Trump administration?
I do know there was delay in getting the documentation signed in terms of allowing the sharing of data. Now, it's always easy to look back 2020 and say, oh, my gosh, things should have been different. I can't comment on the exact process, but I will emphasize that to get this done as quickly as possible, getting the right person in the right position clearly is important. And I would say that's not just for domestic issues, but also it's a dangerous world out there, also for the international environment.
Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing is next week. ABC's reporting that the Senate Armed Services Committee is requesting additional information from a veterans organization that he previously led, and also from the California DA who declined to bring charges following a 2017 sexual assault accusation. Are you aware of any delays that might bungle his confirmation timeline?
I'm not. But by the way, this is the due diligence. The Senate has in the Constitution an advise and consent process. And the fact that this is being requested isn't in of itself necessarily anything bad. It's something good in the sense that the Senate is supposed to look at the qualifications of the person who's nominated and then consent as if they agree that these are good people. So if the Senate's doing its job, that's a good thing.
You've already met with Hegseth. Are you a yes for him?
You know, I still have to see that process. One, we had a great interview. He presented the issues that that we all know about in the press, and he had a response for them. He was there with his wife. He explained how, you know, went after the war, after he served in the war, his life was messed up, and now it's better. I get that. But I'd also like to review the data, the information which is being requested. That is part of fully vetting someone. But Pete did a great job in his interview with me.
Your committee is going to be overseeing RFK Jr.'s hearing, and there are some reports that Democratic Senators John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders might be giving him a nod of support. How is RFK Jr. faring among Democrats on your committee?
I haven't spoken to him about it. I just don't know. I will meet with him this coming week. I look forward to the interview. I agree with him on some things and disagree on others. The food safety, I think the ultra-processed food is a problem. Vaccinations, he's wrong on. And so I just look forward to having a good dialogue with him on that.
Okay. And then yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson made clear to House Republicans that it's Trump's preference to do one reconciliation package rather than two to get the 2017 tax cut extension done along with the border piece because of those narrow margins in the House. Are you on board with that approach?
Well, I better be. If the president says he wants it and Mike Johnson says he's going to do it, all spending bills originate out of the House. So I think that they will dictate the action. As regards to strategy, they're absolutely true. There's very narrow margins. And so we've got to get it right. I suppose after they've looked at the votes they have in the House, they figured that is the best way to get it through. I'm not going to dispute Mike Johnson. I think he's doing a great job.
That is a little bit of a reversal. Usually it's the Senate that dictates what happens in the House.
No, you know, spending bills once more begin in the House. It's probably it's whatever chamber is having the greatest problems. And when Mike has a margin after 3 people leave for the cabinet of 1, he's I don't know if there's ever been a House with that strict of a margin. Now, by the way, if we only do one reconciliation bill, those 3 people who are leaving to go to the cabinet will be replaced, and his margin will be at least a couple more, and not much, but a couple more. So there also may be something very practical in mind there, too.
It always comes down to the math. All right. Thank you, Senator Cassidy.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams, and believe in God. Never ever quit. Keep going, because you never know. Okay, you just never know when it's your time to shine like a diamond. Okay, you just never know. But with that being said, I love you guys. Thank you to the veterans. Thank you to the military men and women currently serving the United States. God bless you. You are truly deeply appreciated, and hopefully this new administration is going to treat you with some respect, with more care, and more love. Okay. So with that being said, this is the end of the live stream. God bless you. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Also join the memberships if you can. And God is great, y'all. God is great. It is Sunday and it's currently 4:49 p.m. and today's date is the 5th of January 2025. God loves you. God loves you. I love you. And you know what? No matter what you're going through, don't think it's the end of the world. No matter what you're going through, do not think it's the end of the world, okay? Stay strong. Help is on the way. Stay strong. Help is on the way, okay? Relax. Deep breath. Drink some water. Relax, okay? Relax. It ain't all that. Relax. Don't go take in things you're not supposed to take, okay? Just relax, all right? Relax. You got this, brother. You got this, sister. I love you guys. God bless you. Happy Sunday. I'll be back here soon.